Fieldhouse. Grabs it, and they'll do it. Kansas has knocked off unbeaten Arizona. Number 1 goes down inside Allen Fieldhouse. No Darren Peterson, no problem for the Kansas Jayhawks.
Yeah, Darren Peterson, the projected number 1 or number 2 pick in the NBA draft, missed another game last night with flu-like symptoms. There's more information on that. Max has it coming up. Good morning, everybody. The show today is a busy one. You'll hear Jay Gruden recap the Super Bowl and also redraft 2024 at the top. If Jay were in charge and he could go back knowing what he knows with 2 years of data, who would he take first at quarterback among the 3 that I think would be in contention, although he threw in a 4th. Will Dawkins, the general manager of the Washington Wizards, will be on the show with us at 12. And then Joe Gibbs will join us at 12:30. I had reached out to Joe and to Joe's people on Friday to see if he would come on to talk about Sonny Jurgensen. So he is coming on today. It's a busy week because it's Daytona 500 a week. So I appreciate Joe making some time for us right around 12:30 for Joe Gibbs following Will Dawkins. Real quickly about that game last night before you tell me about Darren Peterson. There's something always, I think, really cool about a blue blood in the sport being the hungry team, being the team that's not the hunted, being the hunter, and what it does to the crowd. You know, you're so used to seeing Kansas and Duke and Carolina and Kentucky at home whooping somebody pretty badly, even really good teams. It's different when you see them at home as a lower-ranked team playing an undefeated number 1 ranked team. Now, you know, because Arizona just recently joined the Big 12, it's not like there's this storied conference history between Kansas and Arizona, a storied rivalry. It is not. But that Allen Fieldhouse last night was on fire from the beginning. I think it's so interesting to see the tables turned in that situation and to watch a crowd be hungry for the first time in a while. I mean, I'll tell you that the Redskins of the glory years, 80s through, 82 through 91, there was a little bit of, we're winning again. We're about to win another Super Bowl, or we're about to go to another Super Bowl. 82 was special because it had been so long, and then you had that visceral, bloodthirsty hunger of beating Dallas in the NFC Championship game. So we were the hunter back then. And then when we got into the late 80s and early 90s, 91 for sure, we were always the hunted at that point. And there was a bit of a difference in the crowd. It wasn't the same. It was great. Don't get me wrong. RFK was never not good. But there was a difference between the 91 season and the 82 season. When they lost in 83 and lost then in the playoffs, lost in the Super Bowl in 83, lost in the playoffs in 84 at home to the Bears, and then missed the playoffs in 85, and then got eliminated in 86 in the NFC Championship to the Giants. That 87 season, there was some real hunger at the end of that year. They went on the road. They beat the Bears 21-17, the famous Darrell Green punt return game. And then they got a home NFC Championship game because Minnesota had upset San Francisco. And even though Minnesota wasn't top dog and the Redskins were the favorite, there was a hunger in that stadium that day to get back to the Super Bowl because it had been, at that point, imagine this. It had been, 3 seasons of not going to the Super Bowl after going to it back-to-back. But that hunger was there. And last night, man, Kansas and the Kansas fans were so into it. It was a different atmosphere for that place. If you're a college basketball fan and you watch a lot of, big-time games over the years in these big-time, legendary, iconic, field houses and arenas, And the North Carolina fans, the Kansas fans, the Kentucky fans, the Duke fans are a little bit different, but there's always been this, feeling of, well, we're going to win. Not last night, but they did. And they came from behind. They were down 11 in the second half and came from behind. Darren Peterson, though, once again missed a game. It was announced right before tip-off that he had flu-like symptoms and would be out of the game. For those not following the Darren Peterson story, this is an exceptional talent. This is really a unique talent. And everybody believes that Darren Peterson will go number one ahead of A.J. Dawkins and Cameron Boozer in the upcoming loaded 2026 NBA draft, a draft in which the Wizards are hoping to get some luck and end up in one of those top 3 positions to land one of these, the belief is, generational talents. I mean, I would like, out of the 3 right now, Darren Peterson. I thought A.J. Dawkins a few weeks ago. I've watched too much now of Darren Peterson the last few weeks, and I think he's the guy. However, due diligence on this guy, lots of it. Is he load managing through this season? He's now only played in 13 of Kansas's 24 games. There was an ankle, then there was cramping, and now flu-like symptoms. You just told me something right before we started the show about what they're saying about the flu-like symptoms. What happened?
Yeah, so there's this video. So college kids they pull out their phones all the time, so you never really know when you're going to be safe. So there was a ESPN production assistant who was caught texting a group chat basically with the story, and I'll read the text right now. It says, so he's sick and didn't tell anyone at practice, and Bill Self said, don't half-ass it if you're going to play. And Darren Peterson, F it, I'm out. So that
whoa, wait. He, at practice, what day?
Apparently earlier, I guess practice earlier in the day. He doesn't specify
well, they don't
in the
practice
text.
The day of the game. Did they have like a walkthrough or something?
Something like that. But this, I'm just reading what the text said.
Read it to me again. Sorry.
All right. No, you're good. So the text says, so he's sick and didn't tell anyone at practice. And Bill Self said, don't half-ass it if you're not going to play, or if you're going to play. So Darren Peterson said, F it, I'm out. So he was out for the game last night. So this went super viral, just kind of all over, because everybody was super excited about this game. But it got so big that the senior associate athletic director for strategic communications at Kansas had to put out a statement saying, the person texting in this video is a contracted crew worker who handles official stats during the game for ESPN. He does not work for Kansas and is not affiliated with the athletic department in any way. He has no inside information and was speculating. We are handling internally. Now,
who cares who he works for if
right.
he witnessed the exchange?
Exactly. And like,
unless he's making it up.
Well, and that's the thing about, like,
I mean, I don't care if he's a Kansas employee or a fan. If somebody witnessed it
production
and
people see
transcribed
these
it accurately, but they're saying, I mean, speculation. This guy wasn't speculating. He said he witnessed it.
That's what he said in the text,
right?
Yeah, that's what he said in the text exchange. So that's what went super viral last night, and a bunch of people got on Darren Peterson's behind, and now they're calling him. They called him DP for a while. They're calling him DNP now, which is not great.
Yeah. Dozens of scouts, NBA execs, were in the building last night to see Peterson. Bill Self said after the game that Peterson didn't practice Sunday, but went through pregame warmups on Monday. So he was in pregame warmups before the game. And Self said he knew Peterson wasn't himself, but figured adrenaline would kick in and would kick in. And he said, I went into the training room. He's in there trying. And I said, can you? And he said, Coach, I don't think I can. And to be honest with you, I would probably him not play if he couldn't contribute, just because we'd spend 20 minutes trying to get him shots or whatever. And if he doesn't feel it, then I would much rather do it the way it happened. So he tried, but he just couldn't get there. Look, they won without him. I mean, what a job by Kansas to win that game against an Arizona team that has been awesome all year. They were one of 2 remaining undefeated teams going into last night. You're not going to believe who the other undefeated team is. It's Miami, but not the Miami you're thinking of. But for Kansas to win that game last night, that's a huge win for them. And also the fact that they did win it without Darren Peterson, the whole thing is just not a good look for Darren Peterson. Look, if you've got the flu and it's bad, and this winter, pretty much everywhere where you've had bad winter, even before we got the bad winter. I mean, I never get the flu, knock on wood, never. But I had something resembling the flu, right? You remember, Max?
Yeah,
right
it was
before
right around
the holidays.
It was beginning of December.
How many times was I hitting
sick.
the cough button during the show?
It wasn't just you, man. It was everybody in this studio too. So it was going all over.
And, I'll tell you what, though, if I were 18 years old and Arizona was coming into the building, I'd take whatever shots were necessary to get out there and play. But, that's me, a talk show host. This is going to be a real interesting thing. Look, the NBA drafts potential, but you've got to make sure you're drafting the right character, too, especially when there are choices. And the difference about this upcoming draft at the very top is people will be able to talk themselves into other players that they may be more confident in with, in terms of the intangibles. They play Arizona again. They play Texas Tech, who's good. They play BYU. Their next 3 games, okay, Kansas's next 3 games are, where are they? Number 5, Iowa State. I'm sorry. Then they have 2 games. Then they play number 3 Arizona, number 1 Arizona again on the road. Man, that Big 12 is loaded, isn't it? Whew.
So good.
The other undefeated team right now, and they are ranked just 23rd in the latest Associated Press, is Miami of Ohio. They are 24-0. They didn't really play anybody in the non-conference, which, is a break. I mean, sometimes these MAC teams have games that are, tough games that they end up racking up a bunch of L's in the November, early December timeframe. They played Old Dominion, beat them. They played Air Force, and that was basically it before they got into, Mid-American Conference play. But they are 24 and 11-0 in their own conference. They've had close calls. They won a game the other night by 2 against Buffalo. They beat UMass by 2. They score a lot of points. Look it up right now, Max. See if Miami of Ohio is the leading scoring team in the country, because they've gone over 100 6 times this year. They scored 129 in a game. They scored recently at Kent State 107 points. They won a game 107-101. They've got to be, if not the top scoring team in the country, certainly one of the top scoring teams in the country. But Miami of Ohio, beautiful Oxford, Ohio. It is truly, college town, slice of true Americana college town. It is a lot of East Coast kids, a lot of DC area kids, New York area kids, Philly area kids end up at Miami of Ohio. I took one of my boys on a visit there, and I spent some time there in college because, yes, my high school girlfriend went to Miami of Ohio, Max. So I was out there once or twice way back in the 1980s. Beautiful school. And they're 24-0 in basketball. I don't think they've been good in anything in a while. You know who played for Miami of Ohio way back in the day? Ron Harper. The Ron Harper that ended up, winning titles with the Chicago Bulls. He was an incredible player. And Miami of Ohio played Maryland in a first-round NCAA tournament game in 1985. And it was Len Bias against Ron Harper. Bias had it like 34. Harper had like 36. It was an incredible matchup. The game went to overtime. The Terps won it. And then the Terps played in their next game, David Robinson and Navy in the round of 32, which was a highly built-up local, showdown. Maryland beat Navy and went on to a Sweet 16 and ended up losing a Sweet 16 game to Villanova, who went on to win the national championship. And they barely beat Maryland in the Sweet 16 that year. They beat them 47-46, I think was the final score. And it was the worst game of Len Bias's career, actually, in that Sweet 16. He shot like 2 for 15 from the floor, and they still only lost by a point. Villanova went on to win the national championship. But is Miami the leading scorer in the country?
Yes,
leading team?
92.7 points per game. That is ahead of Georgia, who with 91.9.
Wow. Interesting. Miami of Ohio. Who knew? We'll see what happens in the tournament. I don't even know where bracketology has them seated. And, they've had a lot of close calls, so it's very possible they're going to end up losing games down the stretch. George Mason continues to have a really, really good season. They're not in the same position they were because they've lost 2 games in the last 2 weeks. They lost to Duquesne at home last week, but came back, bounced back against St. Joe's. But there's still a matchup, at the end of the year. Now, they need St. Louis to lose a game, but they're sitting there at 9-2 in the A-10 in second place, 21-3 overall. What a job Tony Skinn's doing. And they have a season-ending game against St. Louis. They also play VCU, the next to last game of the year. But that season ender at the Patriot Center, or whatever that arena is called now. Sorry.
Eagle Bank Arena.
Okay, there you go. Eagle Bank Arena. In Fairfax, if they can run the table and St. Louis can lose once, St. Louis is ranked 18th in the country, that game would be for the A-10 regular season title. And maybe a bid, although Mason won the league last year in the regular season and did not get in. It's actually an excellent college basketball season, I'm finding. After, muddling our way through the end of our own football season and then through what turned out to be a very good postseason, I am now very engaged. Watch start to finish that Kansas-Arizona game last night. It was great. And the other thing last night that happened, Louisville, that tried and true longtime ACC powerhouse. Louisville's in the ACC. They got an ACC freshman single game scoring record from Mikel Brown Jr., who scored 45 points in a home game and a home win over NC State. They beat NC State 118-77. But it's an ACC freshman single game record. It tied the school record, which was set by Hall of Famer Wes Unseld when he had 45 for Louisville in a game in December of 1967. But you see that, and it's like, Cooper Flagg, by the way, held the record. I should have mentioned that. Cooper Flagg actually set the freshman single game scoring record in the ACC last year with 42 points. But they did it, by the way, in a 41-point win over NC State, 118-77. We've seen a lot of very high-scoring college basketball games this year and unbelievable individual outputs. Remember a few weeks ago when we had the 3 freshmen, Wagler at Illinois, it was DeBonsa, as I think also, and then somebody else. Who am I missing? Kingston Flemings, I think. Didn't they all go for 40-plus in the same day? All freshmen? We've seen it this year. Maybe freshmen are the way to go. I think you got to recruit the portal as well. I wanted to read this from Edward. Edward wrote, Kevin, Stan Humphries, dummy! Exclamation point. What is Edward talking about? Edward is talking about, we had a Super Bowl trivia question last week that I really was proud of. Because this Super Bowl trivia, thing that we do every year on the show, I pretty much put the whole thing together myself. Now, I get my guy Tim Shovers. Remember, Tim used to be at the station. Some of you remember Tim. Tim helps out every year. It's sort of a tradition. He'll send me a bunch of Super Bowl trivia questions, and I always appreciate it. But in getting to those really hard questions, I kind of work on them because I want them to be hard. I want them to be fun, but I also don't want them to be easily looked up. And there was a question last week that I asked Max during Super Bowl trivia, which we did not get a chance to do on Friday because of Sonny's passing. But the question was, name the 4 quarterbacks who played and started games for the Redskins and then also started in Super Bowls for other teams. And so I asked that question. I guess I must have asked it twice last week because I had a lot of people tweet me and email me with what they thought was the answer to that question. It was something that people got into because they had to think about it. And it wasn't super easy. There were a couple of guys among the four that were easy. So I had down as the answer, and I'm going to tell everybody what my initial answer was. It was wrong, and Edward is calling me a dummy because of it. And he's right to. I totally wrecked the whole thing. I did not do very well in putting this question together along with the answer. I had as the answer to the four quarterbacks who played and started games for the Redskins, but then went on to start Super Bowls for other teams. I had Rich Gannon, who started games for the Skins in the early 90s and then went on to start a Super Bowl for the Raiders against Tampa Bay. I had Donovan McNabb, who obviously started games here and started a Super Bowl for Philadelphia. I had Brad Johnson, who obviously started games here and then started and won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Rich Gannon Raiders. And then I had Rex Grossman, who obviously started games here and also started in a Super Bowl for the Chicago Bears. I don't know how I missed Stan Humphries, but Edward wasn't the only person who tweeted and or emailed me. You forgot Stan Humphries, dummy. Stan Humphries started 3 games for the Redskins. It was only 3. I thought it was actually more than that after they reminded me of Stan Humphries. But he actually only started 3 football games for Washington. Rippon started the others. And then started in the Super Bowl for the San Diego Chargers, coached by Bobby Ross against the Steve Young 49ers. That was a blowout Super Bowl, 49-26. But Stan Humphries was the 5th quarterback, which I did not have and somehow missed. But then Danny, my guy Danny down in Nashville, although Danny, you might not live in Nashville anymore. I think you live in Florida. Danny's a podcast consultant, listens to the show all the time, both the radio show and the podcast. He said, you left out Jeff Hostetler. Yes, I left out Jeff Hostetler too. Hostetler started games for the Skins in 2000 and started, obviously, a Super Bowl for the Giants, the Super Bowl in which they beat Buffalo on the missed field goal at the end, 20-19. Terrible job by me. And how did I go about doing it? Somebody wanted to know. Well, I went through every Super Bowl, all 60 of them, and looked at the starting quarterbacks, and then figured I'd know immediately whether or not that starting quarterback ever played and started a game for us. And somehow it didn't register when I hit Stan Humphries and Jeff Hostetler. So there you go. That's the answer to that question, which is now named the 6 quarterbacks who played and started games for the Redskins, but also started in Super Bowls for other teams. Yeah, not good. Not good. Somebody actually, there were others, by the way, that came in. Somebody said Alex Smith. Alex Smith did not start in a Super Bowl for the 49ers. Colin Kaepernick started that Super Bowl against the Ravens. And then what were the others that came in? I forget. There were a couple of others that, when I saw them, I'm like, oh, damn, did I miss another one? Because Alex Smith, I'm thinking, oh, my God, did I miss Alex Smith? But no, he started that year. But remember, he got hurt, and then, Jim Harbaugh went to Kaepernick. This is 2012. Went to Kaepernick. Kaepernick played so well, made the team totally different offensively, and stuck with Kaepernick. And by the way, remember the incredible postseason game that Kaepernick had against the Packers at Candlestick. I mean, it's still one of the great dual threat quarterbacked playoff games in NFL history. If you go back and you look at that game in 2012, I'm pulling it up right now, but the combined passing yards and rushing yards in that game, Kaepernick in a 45-31 divisional round game against the Packers and a win, threw for 263 and 2 touchdowns, and then rushed for 181 yards and 2 touchdowns. He accounted for 444 total yards and 4 touchdowns. He had a 95.6 QBR in that game. I mean, that team, that 49er team with Kaepernick. And remember, you know who was the offensive coordinator for Jim Harbaugh on those 49er teams? Greg Roman, who was the offensive coordinator for him in L.A. with the Chargers until they let go of him in this offseason. Kaepernick was outstanding throughout that postseason, man. He played well in the next game, the win over the Falcons, and then played pretty well in the Super Bowl against the Ravens, which was obviously a great Super Bowl, but he threw for 300 yards in the Super Bowl, rushed for 62. Wow. Man, did he put up some dual threat numbers in a postseason that year. And I would say that thinking back on those on that time, Kaepernick gave the 49ers a better chance of winning it all than Alex Smith did. Now, Kaepernick eventually, this is my opinion, I think it was much more about what the juice was worth. Was it worth the squeeze? If he wasn't an obvious starter, post 2016, which he wasn't at that point. He hadn't played well enough in recent years to be an obvious starter. And then it was just a matter of, everybody claiming he's one of the best 32, but more likely than not, he was not one of the best 32, but was probably one of the best 64 in the league. But then is the juice worth the squeeze from a business and a PR standpoint, et cetera. But I'll tell you what, in 2012, that dude, along with Russell Wilson and RG3, were changing the game in the moment. Now, you can argue as to how much it really changed the game because, it's not like every team has a dual threat quarterback. Those were 3 legitimate dual threat quarterbacks. I'm not talking about quarterbacks who can run and do run. I'm talking about the offense is essentially designed around the dual threat capability of the quarterback. And Seattle with Darrell Bevell, Washington with Kyle Shanahan and RG3, and then Greg Roman in San Francisco with Colin Kaepernick. And, we had people calling it the wishbone and lots of other things. It wasn't any of that stuff, but pistol and zone read and the quarterback being a part of the run game was really took off that year, and we've never seen an end of it. It's not like every team plays that way, but there are still teams that do play that way. I don't know how we got on Colin Kaepernick. I think it was the Alex Smith. We talked about Alex Smith and then went to Colin Kaepernick. All right. I want to talk about our team and how close our team is to playing in the game that was played on Sunday. We'll get to that next. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. From Mark in Annandale, Mark writes, Kevin, my big takeaway from watching Seattle Sunday night is I can't believe that I actually took the bait and thought that our team was close to being a Super Bowl team last year. Our defense will keep us from being a contender for at least 2 more free agency / draft cycles. And that assumes they got it right with the new defensive coordinator, Durante Jones. This from H. H writes, Sheehan, Seattle, Rams, Bears, Lions, Eagles, 49ers, Packers. Did I miss any? ? We are so far away. I think when the Super Bowl is over, especially if it's an NFC team winning it, you kind of, have a takeaway as it relates to your team. I know a big conversation going into the game was really more about Drake May, Jaden Daniels. We got it wrong. They got it right. Whatever. I mean, we had that conversation last week, and I think that's been a conversation for 2+ months, ever since Drake May kind of entered into the conversation for MVP. By the way, as a side note, if I didn't say this yesterday, thank God Matt Stafford won the MVP. Because I understand it's a regular season award, of course, but how silly would it look if Drake May had won the MVP and then had gone out and had legitimately one of the worst postseasons a quarterback's ever had in NFL history? It was so obvious watching in the postseason that New England had feasted on a very easy schedule. And once they faced much more difficult teams, especially defensive teams, they weren't the team and he wasn't the player he was in the regular season. Let me just say real quickly, I still think he's a good player. I think he's going to get better. I'm impressed. I think the guy's got a big-time future. I'm not going to make a sweeping, one postseason judgment that he's done. That was completely fake and fraudulent during the regular season. I don't think it was. I think he's legit. I think the one thing that you'd be concerned about if you're a New England fan is the nerves that got to him, the happy feet that got to him, the completely overwhelmed physically, mentally, and otherwise in that game. Not all his fault, but it happens sometimes, and how you react to that is sometimes telling. I'm still a fan of Drake May. Not as big of a fan of Drake May as I am Jaden Daniels, but I am still a fan. But the, I think that conversation, Drake May, Jaden Daniels played out during the season, played out over the postseason, and then really kind of culminated with the Super Bowl and how he played. But I think a lot of fans also have a takeaway after watching the Super Bowl. First of all, the season's officially over, but then it's like, man, especially when you see a dominant performance from a team in your conference. I saw something yesterday that I could not believe, but it's true. Did you know that Seattle's won more playoff games than any other NFC team since 2000? They essentially became an NFC team in 99, I think, or 2000, one of those 2 years. They've won more playoff games this century than any other NFC team. I would not have guessed Seattle. I would have guessed the Niners, the Eagles, the Packers. I don't think I would have guessed Seattle, but it's true. But when you see a performance like the Seattle performance, especially the defensive performance, and, as Mark did in particular, put it side by side with our defense, yeah, it's a light years away. I mean, a long way to look like that one. And, what's interesting about Seattle, too, is that, and this year in particular, is that we had defensive-led winners. We had defensive head coaches performing at a high level, winning a Super Bowl. He's the first ever defensive head coach to call plays and win a Super Bowl. Bill Belichick did not call plays exclusively. He was helped out by guys like Matt Patricia, by his son, Steve Belichick, and others through the years. That we talked about that last week. I thought that was surprising that he was the first defensive head coach that calls defensive plays. that was that had a chance to win a Super Bowl if he did win a Super Bowl, and he is that. But you have, not only was it a defensive-led year overall with defensive head coaches, or this guy in particular, winning a Super Bowl, you also didn't have that, one or the other when it comes to the quarterback. You either need the quarterback on a rookie deal to win big, or you need the guy that's making all the money who's truly elite. It's one or the other. That's how you win, a Super Bowl. It's never been that's how you win a Super Bowl. That's how you sustain winning, for a period of time and have a shot and have a big swing, or have more than one big swing. But, I've sat here and talked about that, the rookie, quarterback contract and the benefits of having an elite level talent at quarterback on a rookie deal and what you can do with that. And then if you don't have that, then you got to swing big and get an elite quarterback and pay him, a ridiculous percentage of your overall cap. And obviously we've seen that with guys like Mahomes and Brady at times. And we've seen the rookie deal, Jalen Hurts a few years ago, getting to the Super Bowl on still a rookie deal. Brock Purdy, the same thing. But that's not what we had Sunday night. We had a mid-tier quarterback. We had mid-tier money quarterback Sam Darnold. Shorter-term deal, but they were able to go out and add DeMarcus Lawrence. They were able to go out and add pieces on defense, pieces on offense to compete. So, every year is a different year in the NFL, man. It really is. Things change so quickly. They change week to week, but they really change year to year, and you just don't have any idea. They were a 60-1 shot to win the Super Bowl before the season started, and they were 10-7 last year. I mean, New England was a massive long shot getting to the Super Bowl. Next year, 60-1, Washington's in that 60-1 range heading into next year. But there are a lot of things about the game Sunday night that, end up being takeaways by NFL fans who have their own team. Oh my God, we're so far away from that. Oh my God, we actually kind of look like that. We're not that far away from that. What I want to know is, what was your big takeaway from the Super Bowl as it relates to our team? The big takeaway. Is it what Mark said? For me, I think that's it. It's been it for a while. It was it before last year, before this past season, is I don't think you can truly contend until you're good, at least good on defense. You don't need to be great like Seattle was. It's helpful if Sam Darnold's your quarterback, kind of a mid-tierish, maybe that's not fair to Sam Darnold after the 2 years that he's had. But I don't consider Sam Darnold to be an elite level quarterback. I don't think that's what he is. I think he is a very good quarterback in a specific system with a great supporting cast. And the supporting cast includes the defense. But what's your big takeaway from the Super Bowl as it relates to our team? Did you watch that game and think, oh my God, we got no shot? I mean, anybody that says we're going to be contending for anything this year with our defense, or maybe it's, we have a defensive head coach too. And now we got a new coordinator, and we've got all this cap space. We have to go out and add 5-6 new starters. Defensively, we could turn it around. Maybe it has something to do with the quarterbacks in the game versus our quarterback. Usually you have a takeaway after watching the Super Bowl. What's yours? 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. Mine was, but it's been a continuation of watching this NFL season. And by the way, watching last year's Super Bowl. Remember, after the Super Bowl last year, the big takeaway was, we're good, but we're not Philadelphia. We don't have the size up front on either side of the ball, and we're nowhere near good enough defensively. I didn't think that they could make the run they made last year with the defense they had, although we kept coming back to, but we do have Superman playing at quarterback, and he was Superman at quarterback in 2024. That's why they won 14 games out of 20. That's why they got to the NFC Championship game more than anything else, not taking away from Terry's year or Ertz or Eckler, because they were a better team when Eckler was on the field, no doubt. The additions that they made in various spots, the rookie season Sanders still had. There were pieces here and there. The really good job Kingsbury did with the offense. There was a lot there, but it was really about Jaden Daniels when it comes down to it. He was the most responsible for what they did. But after that game in the title game in Philly, I mean, we all kind of said, I mean, we're just not big enough or strong enough in the trenches to beat that team. And to get to the Super Bowl, you really do more times than not have to be that team that's playing at home most of the way. Seattle proved that. Now, New England won a road game, won the AFC title game on the road against a backup quarterback. But what's that one takeaway more than any other? Watching, maybe it's not just Sunday night. The Sunday night is the mark because now we're into the offseason and we're looking ahead. Maybe it was, from the overall postseason. For me, it's the same as it was last year. They have to improve so much defensively just to get to the middle of the pack defensively. And if they can do that, their chances of winning more games than they lose and maybe a lot more games than they lose increase exponentially. But if they go into next year and they've got a defense similar to the one they had this year, it really is going to be hard. Even if Jaden's healthy, plays 17, they add another weapon offensively, and they're cooking like they were in 24 offensively. It's going to be hard to replicate what they did in 24, which was contend, legitimately contend. It's hard to contend when you can't stop the run. It's hard to contend when you can't pressure the opponent's quarterback. It's hard to contend when you can't get off the field against J.J. McCarthy for 12-plus minutes, starting at their own 2-yard line. That's my big takeaway. It was emphasized, cemented, Mark and Annandale, watching Seattle and seeing 5 to 6 DBs on the field, all running around with great speed, with great violence and the hitting and the tackling. I mean, and what they were able to generate with 4 as a pass rush, and then scheme up with, an inside slot, a blitzer and Witherspoon who runs 4-2. God, there's a lot of talent they have to add to the defensive side of the ball. And then it's got to be coached up. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. What's your big takeaway now that the season's over, and maybe from Sunday night as far as our team goes? Like, I was going to ask the question, how far away are we from contending? 2 years, 5 years, or unknown because it's so far off? That's a question that is hard because in the NFL, every year's a new year. And if you get it right in the offseason and then you stay healthy and players exceed and you get some breaks along the way, you can contend. Look at New England this year. They overhauled their entire roster, coaching staff. They got great quarterback play during the regular season. They got a break with one of the easiest schedules in recent memory, and they were in the Super Bowl. I want big takeaway after watching Sunday night, this postseason, as it relates to our team. 301-230-0980. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980, theteam980.com. Don't forget, you can watch this show on the Team 980's YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and hit the like button when you get there. The coordinators will have their press conferences today, introductory press conferences, starting at 1. I would assume that Dan Quinn will be part of those as well. We'll carry that here on the station during Chris's show. So tune in for that to hear David Blau for the first time and to hear Durante Jones for the first time. So the Super Bowl's over. The 2025-2026 season is over. Often after a Super Bowl, you kind of put it in perspective as it relates to your team, what you just saw, and you have a takeaway. Like, oh, my God, as Mark and Annandale wrote, we are just nowhere near the Seattle Seahawks on defense. No kidding. And H listed all the teams he thinks are better than Washington entering next year. Seattle, Rams, Bears, Lions, Eagles, 49ers, Packers. So what is that? That's 7 teams he's got better of the 16 in the NFC. Are we the 8th best team? And are we going to be battling for a wild card spot? Let me just tell you something, man. Next year needs to be one of those years when we get towards Thanksgiving and December. I don't want to be 4-8. I want to be 8-4. I want to be in the thick of it. All right, playing meaningful football. That was too much fun in 2024. Last year was too familiar, if you know what I'm talking about. We don't need the familiar. We need what we had in 2024. And look, I still think, without question, the reason Washington didn't have a good season, number one, more than anything else, injuries. You can't overcome the injuries that they had. All right, Max, do you have a big takeaway after the Super Bowl Sunday night, after the postseason concluded? We're now on to next year.
Yeah, my big takeaway, I mean, it's kind of a basic takeaway, but it really was emphasized because I watched Will Campbell get his butt handed to him time after time, and it's so important to have experience, power, and speed in the trenches. Just that defensive line was so dominant, and Drake May, they made him see ghosts. They turned him into Sam Darnold, and while he didn't really have the greatest postseason runs, he still made the Super Bowl, to his credit. But man, that Seahawks defensive line and just the speed with which the secondary plays, I think it's so important to have a head coach who can get everyone pulling in the same direction. Because a lot of times guys just their heads are elsewhere. They're not focused on like the greater aspect of the team part of the game. And Mike McDonald's done such a great job at that. And I think Dan Quinn did a really good job at that last year. Now we had some things go on in the offseason and that kind of fractured, but hopefully we can kind of see this, learn from it, and get back on track in the coming years. So yeah, pulling in the right direction and the trenches, man, that's so important.
You mentioned just the speed on Seattle's defense.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Washington has to increase their overall team speed everywhere. And that's on offense too. They've got to add another speed element. The quarterback is their fastest player. You don't want that to be the case.
Right.
We've got to have, in addition to Terry, we've got to have more speed on the field. And the irony of that is, it's not like both teams were killing it with speed on offense, but it was the speed on defense that was so interesting to watch. By the way, both teams were super fast defensively. G, what was your big takeaway from the Super Bowl as it relates to our team?
A lot. Definitely need major defensive improvement because we rely on Jaden Daniels to be a superhero too much. And I watched Drake May think the gym up all playoffs, and their defense figured out how to help them win a game.
Right.
I need to see a better run scheme because remember when we was doing premature comps to Bill Krosky Merritt earlier this season, I said Kenny Walker III was a good little comp. And if we get some better run scheme, we can put enough pressure on the defense, man, and be consistent with running the joint because that's what Seattle did all night. And the biggest takeaway to me was the film preparation. You know what I'm saying? How to get better because I watched a lot of Seattle this season, and my biggest Like the thing I was most impressed by is how that coaching staff and that team were always prepared. Especially, like, look at how they played San Fran the last two times. A division foe that's always going to give them bump, and they made them look JV, man. They looked super prepared. They knew what the other team was doing all the time. And one more thing, Kevin, definitely bring Tressway back. I know he's getting older, but the way Seattle's punter played that field position.
Yeah.
Oh, it was beautiful.
He was great.
Beautiful. So,
he should not have been the MVP. I've heard people discuss Dixon as a potential MVP of the game. That would not have been my vote at all. I would have gone Kenneth Walker every day of the week, and then I would have looked to maybe Ernest Jones or somebody on defense. Real quickly though,
I would have went to the kick. I'd have went to the kicker after
or 5 for 5. The punter was outstanding. Don't get me wrong. We talked about that yesterday, but he's not an MVP in the game. It was a field position game. There's no doubt about that. You and I both love Kenneth Walker, and we've loved him for a couple of years. He is an unrestricted free agent.
No, since Michigan State.
Yeah, he's an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, and it's. I was thinking about that yesterday. I'm like, they really gonna let a Super Bowl MVP?
No, they're not. They'll get him signed. They'll get him signed.
Yeah, exactly. So that wasn't. But I don't think we fall off because we do got that Superman. We do got that superhero that I do think throws the ball way better than Drake May. Everybody was on that train, but I watched Drake May stink the gym up all playoff long. And I got respect for his game. I think he's going to be good. But
yeah,
they figured
I'm with you.
New England figured out ways on how to win, even though the quarterback was stinking it up.
Yeah. All right, I'll talk to you. John, Rod, Robert, Little, Billy, Hugh, Stan, stay on hold. What was your big takeaway from the Super Bowl on Sunday as it relates to our team? It often, prompts a thought like, ooh, we're nowhere as good in that area, or we're nowhere as good as those teams. Or sometimes, we could be right there with a move or two. My thing has been going back to before last year, defense. It's got to be better. You need 4 to 5 new starters. You can do it in free agency, and then you got to be coached up much better than they've been over the last 2 seasons. Health would help as well. Stay on hold. We'll take your calls next. I've already mentioned Jay Gruden will be on. We'll get his thoughts on the Super Bowl, and he'll redraft the quarterbacks in 2024. Will Dawkins, Wizards GM, with us at 12, and Joe Gibbs will join us at 12:30. All right. What's your big takeaway from the Super Bowl as it relates to our team? It can be really from just the postseason overall. Mine is in sync with my emailer, Mark in Annandale. The big takeaway, but it's not new for me, is just how far off our team is defensively. And it's tough. And we've seen sort of a change, although every year's different, and maybe it'll change back to offensive teams dominating the win percentage next year. But it's hard to go through a postseason with a bad defense and continue to advance. And when you have a great one, you have a chance to be led by that, even if your offense isn't, top notch. The season this year was led really by the best defensive teams in the league. Now, with that said, would we have a different opinion if the Rams don't muff a punt in the NFC Championship game and they beat Seattle and then they beat New England and their defense struggled, towards the end of the year? Maybe, but still, what a difference a few years makes in terms of the number of teams that were dominant defensively, and it coincided with winning more games than losing. We've seen some really good defensive teams over the last 10, 12 years. Teams like Cleveland, the Jets have been really good defensively at various times, but they just haven't had the quarterback. They haven't had the offense, and they lose a lot more than they win. This year, you had some examples, including, a team like Denver, a team to a certain degree like Houston, that won a lot more games and were really led by their defense in winning games. What's your big takeaway? Mine is just you got to get better defensively and a lot better. John, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Hey, Kev, how you doing?
I'm well, John.
My big takeaway, man, we could have had Christian Gonzalez. It's like we traded all them draft picks. If we don't trade all those draft picks, we got depth. But in order for us to fix our defense, I think they're going to have to sign either Trey Henderson, because I don't really know if Bain or the kid from Texas Tech is going to be there when we draft. And then that'll allow us to either take Caleb down, trade back. But we definitely need to – I agree wholeheartedly with you. We definitely need to get better on defense, because without that, we're going to be stuck in the same place. So that's my idea.
Yeah, and by the way, I think a lot of people watching the Super Bowl, not that they didn't know Christian Gonzalez was a really good player, but to see it on full display was, wow, we took Emmanuel Forbes, the pick before Christian Gonzalez. Look, Seattle took Witherspoon, and I think if you had the choice, you'd probably take Gonzalez, although Witherspoon obviously a lot better than Forbes. Let's go to Rod in Landover. Rod, what was your big takeaway after the Super Bowl in terms of how it relates to our team?
Hey, what's up, Kevin? My big takeaway is that, man, we need a complete overhaul. I keep hearing all of us say defense, and I totally agree. But I think so on offense, too. I mean, Seattle had a guy on their team, that wide receiver. Man, that guy went over 1,700 yards this year. 1,700 yards. We have nobody on our offense like that. Not even close. All the good teams.
You're right about that. You are right about that. I mean, our best player on offense is our quarterback by miles. There's not another player capable of doing what JSN did. Not one.
Not even close. And when you look at all the good teams, I mean, look at the teams in our division. Dallas got two good receivers and a good running back. Philadelphia got two good receivers and a good running back. And we don't know what the Giants going to do. I mean, when you look at the Bears, the Rams, the Green Bay, these guys got playmakers. We have zero. So I think we need to do a complete overhaul. I think on the defensive side of the field, we need about 6, 7 players. I think on the offensive side of the ball, we need about 4 players. That's why, personally, Kim, I'm going to say this. Personally, with the number 7, with the 7th pick that we have, if it was me, I'm drafting Jeremiah Love. I want somebody on this team that's going to be so good that people in other cities going to buy his jersey. I think Jeremiah Love is that guy.
Here's the thing, Rod. Here's the thing, Rod, and you're going to hear Jay Gruden, mention this when I play the conversation I had with him yesterday. They have to really make, their imprint on next year's roster in free agency. They only have 6 picks. These are young first-year players coming in. We know the nature of the draft. It's a crapshoot. And they have to really make hay during free agency so it doesn't put pressure on them to draft need. At number 7, if Jeremiah Love is the player on the board that is the best player on their board by a lot, they have to be in position to take that player based on what they did in free agency, based on the 5 new players that they added defensively that they think can contribute and or start, to the other receiver they added offensively to Terry. I'm with you on that. I want them to be in position when we get to April 25th or whatever day that is, for them to be able to draft the best player available, not on need. Thanks, Rod. Appreciate it. Let's go to Robert in Annapolis. Robert, what was your big takeaway as it relates to Washington from the Super Bowl on Sunday?
All right. Well, good morning. And as always, thanks for taking my call. If I may, condolences to the family of Barry Wilburn, who died tragically.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday.
Okay. I hadn't heard that, but that was such a sad thing.
Sad.
Yeah, but everybody's mentioning it. On your defense, you have to have strength on your front end to stop the run or be effective against the run and put that pressure on the quarterback. And you have to have speed in the back. Linebackers and defensive backs have to be able to cover these guys. I mean, because of these new age offenses, but you also have to be able to take the ball away. It's turnovers frequently that you have to be able to accomplish. I mean, that's what happened in the Super Bowl, and it's happened before. But Kevin, your team always has a chance with number 5. Once you have one of those guys that can do some really good stuff, there have been defenses that weren't very good that won the Super Bowl. Neither of those Giants teams with Eli was. I mean, you remember their pass.
Wait a minute. Hold on. They won those Super Bowl games because of their interior pressure, because of their pass rush.
Yeah, in the play, understood. In the playoff, both Eli and the front end. But if you look, you'll see one of those teams was ranked as low as 25th.
I know. I think the lowest ranked defense, I could be wrong about this. I think the Saints team that won it had the lowest ranked defense of all time in terms of Super Bowl winners. And the Colt defense that won it the first time over Chicago wasn't great, but they got healthy in the playoffs and played much better in the playoffs.
Believe me, I remember they got healthy in Baltimore. I'll never forget.
Yeah, right.
We held that offense with Manning, which was one
it was like 15-10 or something, right?
Oh my God! Let's not go there. But anyhow, look.
But Justin Tuck and Strahan and that group was awesome in the postseason.
But again, over the whole length of the season, they weren't that high ranked. But the point is that's really what you got to do. And the other caller just mentioned the offense. So there's a lot of holes in the Swiss cheese there. But you got a quarterback. Yeah. Who knows? You're not as bad as you were this year. You're not as good as you were the year before. So you're somewhere in between, and see what happens with this year's draft and some free agents.
Thanks, Robert.
Shot, man. You have a chip in a chair.
Appreciate it. Stan, go ahead. What was your big takeaway?
Well, it's already been mentioned, man, but we're slow on both sides of the ball, man. We got Philadelphia who beat you up with size. Team like Seattle beat you up with speed. We're kind of like lost, man, and Dan Quinn got to make his imprint on the team. He's supposed to be a defensive coach. You look at Mike Rabel, that game, man. They just couldn't, overcome their bad offense. But Dan Quinn got to make his move, man. If he's a defensive coach, he got to show through this year.
Well, he hired a new defensive coordinator, so hopefully he made the right call.
All right, man.
Thanks, Stan. Appreciate it. Let's go to Paulie. Paulie, go ahead.
Big guy, hail to the W,
hail
man.
To the W.
Hey, listen, contrary to everybody else saying, man, I think we right there. I think, number one, we need an attitude adjustment. We need that same attitude we had in 24. All 3 phases of the game, we need to play like how the special teams play. And that's what I've seen in 24 on offense and defense. Everybody played hard, and everybody had a purpose. I guess that's what I'm saying. We need to play with a purpose. You know, offense and defense, we got to play with a schematic strategy. That's what I've seen in the Super Bowl the other night. Both teams. You said it about New England. You know, it might not have been a good strategy, but they had a strategy of we're going to play it close to the vest and win with defense. So I think we just need to, you know, not just be out there on offense just calling plays, and on defense not just reacting to the offense. We need to impose our will on teams, man. I think on offense, man, we just speed at receiver, speed at running back, and we good. You know, and I think on defense, man, I think that was the whole reason why they brought Jones in here, because you look at Minnesota, they don't got 11 Pro Bowlers on defense. It's the scheme. You know, and I think they know we're going to bring players in here, but we ain't going to be able to fill every hole on defense in one offseason. So we need to have a scheme that's going to oppose their will on the opposing team's offense. So I just think, man, schematic strategy, and we need to get that attitude back that we had in 24.
Well, I like what you said. I look, I don't know if that was my takeaway from Sunday. I think it's been more of a takeaway since watching the team for the 2 years. You know, Quinn very much emphasized early in that 24 season, we're going to use these new rules and we're going to set the tone with our coverage units. We're going to go down, we're going to hit people. We're getting guys like Nick Bellore, et cetera, on special teams, and we're going to hit people and set the tone. And that often does. And by the way, Seattle's special teams were outstanding this year. I mean, they were number 2 in the league per DVOA. They were great everywhere. And I do think that at times, even though this season was lost, we saw some of that fight even out of a very limited team because of the players they had to put on the field. I'm not concerned about that part. I'm not concerned about Dan Quinn being able to motivate, Dan Quinn being able to, along with Adam Peters, pick the right people. They need more talent.
No, Sheehan, I hear you, man. But we got blown out in a lot of games, and that comes with attitude and not being, like G said earlier, prepared to play, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There's no doubt. There's a lot of one-sided games. A lot of games I watched this year, and I didn't understand what they was trying to do. Who are you trying to stop on defense? And well,
who trying to attack?
You didn't recognize
offense?
the players they were putting on the field in a lot of those games.
I mean, come on, man. This was early on too. Like, what are we trying to accomplish? Who are we trying to take away on offense? Who are we trying to attack? What part of the field we trying to attack on defense? I mean, it needs to be more schematic rhyme or reason to what they're doing, man. A lot of times, Kingsbury. This is one of my knocks with Kingsbury was he was just calling plays. Where are you really trying to attack? What weakness are you trying to attack, man? That's what I'm saying. We need some schematic. We need some schematic strategy out there. I didn't see that last year, and I seen that from both teams in the Super Bowl. You knew what they was trying to do. You knew Seattle was trying to run the ball, and you seen New England didn't want May to lose the game for him, but he did. But yeah, man, hail to the W. I'll be easy.
Right. Paulie, everybody. If you're on hold, stay there. We'll get another segment of calls in on this question. What was your big takeaway from the Super Bowl and from the postseason in general as it relates to our team? I think a lot of people felt, as I did, and Mark and Annandale felt, that, wow, Seattle's defense, wow, we are a long way away from that. But you don't have to get to that, but you got to get halfway there to that next year at the very least. Redfin's giving away $1 million home in an epic, never-been-done-before scavenger hunt on the Redfin app. It's called Redfin's Great American Home Search, presented by Rocket, and it kicked off today. The house is hidden in Redfin and Rocket's big game commercial, so watch it closely. Download or update the Redfin app to play. Solve the clues first to win. You've got until February 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern to find your new home. That's today. You've got until 8 p.m. Eastern this evening to find your new home. No purchase necessary. 50 USDC. Must be age of majority. Visit thegreatamericanhomesearch.com for official rules. Redfin's giving away $1 million home in an epic, never-been-done-before scavenger hunt on the Redfin app. It's called Redfin's Great American Home Search. It's presented by Rocket, and it kicked off today. The house is hidden in Redfin and Rocket's big game commercial, so watch it closely. Download or update the Redfin app to play. Solve the clues first to win, and then you've got until tonight, February 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern, to find your new home. No purchase necessary. 50 USDC, must be age of majority. Visit thegreatamericanhomesearch.com. That's thegreatamericanhomesearch.com for official rules. What was your big takeaway from Super Bowl 60 as it relates to our team? For me, it was more of, an emphasis of just how far away our team is defensively from competing for anything meaningful. Just really hard in the NFL, even during the best of the offense first days of like the last, 15 plus years until this year and maybe even last year with two defensive-led teams winning the Super Bowl in, by the way, dominant fashion, led by their defense. But even though we had a year in 24 where the defense stunk and the team still won 14 games, we know that the schedule broke right. The teams we were facing with our bad defense had backup quarterbacks. And then we got a couple of teams in the postseason, not easy teams, road games, teams that could score for sure, but they were a little bit banged up on their defensive side of the ball. I don't think you can get to a Super Bowl or win a Super Bowl with a bad defense. I just don't. Washington's got a bad defense. It's got to, at least in this upcoming season, add 4 to 5 new starters, add a much better overall, organized approach, coaching approach, and they've got to rise to the middle of the pack. And if they can do that, and we're not sitting there watching our defense essentially, watch, their receiver counterparts catch a ball 10 yards in front of them with the quarterback having all day. I really, next year, the opener, I just want to see us stop the run. I don't care who we're playing. How about just stop the run occasionally? I thought that's where they were going to be better this year. And I think if they had been healthy, they would have been a better run-stopping team. I don't think they would have been a good defensive team, though. Hugh in Hagerstown. Thanks for holding, Hugh. Go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, thanks for taking my call. I'm a long-time listener. I've called a few times. Hey, I just wanted to emphasize two things, and both things that you said recently that I couldn't agree more. And the first one was it's a sad time for Redskin Nation with Sonny's passing, and you were talking about him being the most beloved Redskin. I became a Redskin fan when I was 6 years old in 1961, and watching with my dad the joy with which Sonny would shred people, defenses and such. But his defense was so bad they would lose game after game after game. Yeah. And reminded this year's defense is probably very, very similar to what Sonny played with at that time. So I just want to say you're spot on when you say that, but you got to kind of probably be of a certain age to really understand it. Second thing, though, is I could not agree with you more about the defense being such a problem. I watched the Super Bowl, and I actually got depressed watching that with that feeling of Mark and Annandale. We are light years away from being able to really compete on the defensive side of the ball. The Seahawks rushed four guys for much of that game and created tremendous pressure on that thing. And it was unbelievable to watch it because it really just reinforced how bad our defense really is. So I could not agree with you more that is. And I would tell you the last point I would like to make is I think this is going to be a defining offseason for sure for Adam Peters. And I'm a big Peters fan.
I agree. He's got to make an impact on. They've got to add. I mean, honestly, the over-under, and we'll do this when we get to free agency, the over-under has to be set at like 5.5 new starters in total, maybe 6.5, both sides of the ball. They need 6.5 new starters, and it'd be nice to be on the north side of that between now and then. And then the next offseason, even more. And out of the draft, hopefully some future starters, and maybe a starter, certainly with number 7 overall. Thanks, Hugh. Appreciate it. Let's go. Yeah, go ahead. Finish up, Hugh. I'm sorry. Little. Big takeaway from Sunday was what?
Coach, thank you for taking my call. Shout out to Mad Max. I'm going to tell you now, man, like my man Southeast G from the shop say, 2 words, Captain, dictate and adamant. That's all I want to see. You be on the field looking like the Three Stooges, like my man the legend say. I don't want to see that. I want to see him put like example, using it as a parable. 3rd and 5, we 10 yards off the ball as a cornerback. I want to see them cornerbacks up in their face. And this is what I think this new coordinator.
What was it dictate and what was the other part of that?
To be adamant.
Adamant.
What the hell
Dictate
you doing on the field.
and adamant. I like it.
Right. Knowing what the hell you doing out there, Kevin. You running around like the legends say, looking like the Three Stooges. Come on, man. We ain't see no rotation of the defensive line. They never rotate them boys. I mean, stunt them. I mean, use stunts. I think this coach going to separate the slow from the fast. I'm going to tell you now, Kevin, if Love is there, I'm going to grab him because you know why? I think McGee would be a hell of a man coming off the line. We only see him come off the ball 2 times. And he's quick. They didn't even send McGee for 2 times the whole year.
Dictate
let's
and adamant.
8, 9 times during the game.
Yeah.
And knowing what the hell he's doing, just go after the quarterback, McGee. Come on, man. Come on, man. Hey, look. That's all I want DQ is to upgrade his testosterone level. Just put him upgrade his testosterone level and leave him on the sideline.
Well, hopefully they've all got enough testosterone. But beyond that, they got a defensive coordinator from Brian Flores' scheme. That's a dictate and adamant scheme.
Right. Like the 757 say, it's the scheme.
Right.
It's the scheme. Hey, man, God. Hey,
You're
Kevin,
the best, Little.
I watched the game with a heavy heart. I watched the game with a heavy heart anyhow, but that tequila kicked in, and then I saw that defense. I said, oh, Lord. We gotta get there. Hey,
what was the heavy heart from? Barry Wilburn?
Yeah. Heavy heart from them not acknowledging my man, Sonny. God bless you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But then the tequila kicked in, and you were dictating, and you were adamant. So it all worked out. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Little. Let's go to Billy in Chantilly. Big takeaway from Sunday or just the postseason in general as it relates to our team was what?
I'm adamant about tequila myself.
Me too.
Kevin, listen, Seattle gave us the blueprint for how to win in this league on the offensive side of the ball. If they had Jaden Daniels instead of Darnold, they would have hung up 60 on the Patriots. The defense doesn't mean anything.
What's your takeaway? What's your takeaway? Not Seattle's blueprint for an even bigger win, because they won by 16. They were pretty dominant.
Here's the blueprint. Run the football, keep JD5 upright, let him convert on 3rd down because he always converts on 3rd down, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 9, doesn't matter. The guy can deliver the football, run the football, keep your bad defense off the field, and go.
But this is a strategy for winning a lot of NFL games. What was the big takeaway from Sunday? What was your big takeaway?
I gave it to you. Run the football.
Run the football. Got it. Okay.
That's it. Run the football. Keep your defense off the field. The quarterback play in this league is terrible anyway. I don't know if you're paying attention. Did you see what Stafford did? And I know you're a Stafford guy. To Seattle's defense, he destroyed them. JD5's better than Stafford. Stafford would shred. JD5 would shred Seattle.
Well, I don't know. JD5 did get a chance against Seattle's defense. I know that Robbie Chosen and Treylon Burks, after arriving 3 days earlier, were on the field, and it wasn't much of a supporting cast. But that wasn't, his best moment or the team's best moment. They did play Seattle this year. You know that, right?
They didn't. They may have played him, but JD5 was not at 100%. He had a bad elbow.
Well, he didn't have much around him, but it hardly resembled what Matt Stafford. That's still, to me, by the way, is what my biggest takeaway is from the Super Bowl, and it has nothing to do with our team because that's what I asked, and I've already answered that question. Is just how much separation there was this year between Seattle and the Rams and the rest of the league. They were so easily the 2 best teams in the league this year. And, the Rams would have destroyed New England too. Now, New England would have been better off facing the Ram defense than the Seattle defense. But when you think about what we saw Sunday night with Seattle's defense against New England and what we saw, by the way, with Seattle's defense against the 49ers week 18 and in the divisional round, and you consider that Matt Stafford in his final 2 games against Seattle this year, late in the season, week 16, I think, Max, on Thursday night, and then in the NFC Championship game, he threw for 831 yards and 6 touchdowns. He got sacked 1 time and didn't throw a pick. That is insanity. Sorry, Billy. No one could have done that but Stafford. Now, he had the supporting cast. He had Puka Nacua. He had Devontae Adams. He had a run game. But they didn't have much of a defense. He needed to win a shutout. And if their special teams hadn't, completely wrecked their team with the muffed punt, they would have been hoisting the Lombardi on Sunday night. That, to me, we did talk about this, I think, yesterday, Max. Like, somebody asked me, okay, if you think those were the 2 best teams in the league this year, and I do, who is the 3rd best team in the league?
Ooh.
Because that'll tell you right there just how much better these 2 teams were. It's almost impossible. Like, who was the 3rd best team? Was it actually Denver? It wasn't New England.
I'm going to say, Denver, or if Houston, if CJ Stroud didn't poop his pants.
Yeah, maybe Houston. Because you wouldn't say Chicago. No. You wouldn't say Green Bay. Oh. You wouldn't say the 49ers with the state they were in. You wouldn't say the Eagles. You wouldn't say Denver, I don't think. You know who was really good at the end of the year? Jacksonville.
Yeah, they turned it on down the stretch.
That was a really good football team that lost to Buffalo in that playoff game. I still think that was the single best performance of the postseason. Josh Allen's game against Jacksonville on Wild Card weekend. But the point is that really and truly, these 2 teams were. Now, I do think if Houston didn't drop CJ Stroud back 50 times and had punted 12 or 13 times instead of just 8 or 9 or whatever it was, they probably would have beaten the Patriots. They would have destroyed Denver in the AFC title game, and they would have had it. That would have been one hell of a matchup against Seattle. That would have been a much better matchup. Although you had to play it in some ways the way Vrabel played it, which was conservatively. Don't take the ball out of your quarterback's hands, which is what they did. I want to tell you real quickly, Window Nation's got a great deal going on right now, and it's going to last through the end of the month. Every 4 windows purchased, the next 4 are free. Add 10% in the form of a Valentine's Day discount. You're going to be paying less than 50% of the retail price when all is said and done for the windows if you make a move before the end of the month. Add to that, if you choose to finance the purchase, no money down, no payments, no monthly payments, and literally no interest for 2 years. You won't start paying for your windows until the year 2028. Window Nation's got 45,000 5-star reviews. They were ranked number 1 by Forbes magazine among window installation companies in the United States. I promise you, they will take good care of you. I've been with them for 17 years. It always works out for everybody. If you've been thinking about new windows, windownation.com, mention my name. They'll schedule a fast, free in-home estimate. 4 free windows with 4 purchased. Add 10% in the form of a Valentine's Day discount and don't pay anything for 2 years. windownation.com. You can also call them at 866-90-NATION.
All right, happy Tuesday, everybody. Quickly, here is what's happening. The big news of the night comes from the world of college basketball. Kansas knocked off number 1 Arizona without top prospect Darren Peterson, who missed the game due to flu-like symptoms. Is the first time in history of Allen Fieldhouse that they have seen the demise of a number 1 seeded opponent. And in the NFL, David Njoku has announced that he will not be back in Cleveland after 9 years. He will enter free agency. Surely some tight end needy teams will be calling. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch programs like Take Command all off season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us and turn on notifications. Stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
Will Dawkins is going to join us at noon. He's the Wizards GM. Last week was a rather active trade deadline week, adding Anthony Davis. We'll talk to him about that trade and a lot more at noon. And then Joe Gibbs will join us at 12:30. I had reached out to Joe on Friday to see if he would come on and talk about his relationship with Sonny Jurgensen. So he's going to do that with us, and we'll talk to Joe about some other things as well. So Will Dawkins at 12, Joe Gibbs at 12:30. I caught up with Jay Gruden yesterday on my podcast, asking him about the Super Bowl. You're going to hear Jay actually redraft the 24 quarterbacks. That's coming up here in the middle portion of this conversation. But it started off with the fact that he and I both picked the New England Patriots to not only cover, but win outright in Super Bowl 60. And I said, where did we go wrong?
That's a great question. I think watching New England play the last few weeks, I guess they did it with some smoke and mirrors. They played against a backup quarterback in Denver. Their offense hasn't been playing very well, but I thought throughout the course of the year they showed flashes. I thought in the game, the Super Bowl, they lacked speed. I think, you're talking about the receiving core, Booty, and the other guys.
Diggs.
Douglas, Hunter Henry. They didn't really have any juice. Stevenson didn't look like he was running. Some of the play designs were a little awkward. Some of the protection schemes weren't up to par. Drake May didn't have much confidence. Ramondo Stevenson couldn't bail him out with any big plays in the running game. So they were really strapped from start to finish. You can really tell start of the game, they went 3-0. I think then they had 3 possessions after the half where they got settled in at halftime, an extra long halftime to talk about what they're going to do. And they went 3-0. That's hard to do when you have that much time and supposedly that good of an offense. But offensive line-wise, they were atrocious. Will Campbell was terrible. The rookie left guard was bad. Morgan didn't play that much better. Bradbury didn't play that good either. They just got their ass whooped all across the board. So they were overmatched, and we did not see it, Kevin. We were poor pickers in that game. It was an ass whooping.
I mean, one of the things that I talked about was, because you and I talked briefly about the Denver AFC title game, where basically the Patriots played not to lose. They put the game on their defense and on the idea that Jarrett Stidham would make a mistake, and that's all they would need in a game, and they won that way. And I thought they did the exact same thing in the game last night. They decided they were going to play it conservatively. They were going to play field position. They weren't going to let Drake May commit any big errors. And because the game was like 6-0, 9-0, it was never out of hand really until late in the third quarter. They sort of stuck with that. I'm wondering if you thought the same thing, and then at what point do you start trying something new?
Yeah, I don't know. They tried a couple shot plays. They tried a play action to Hunter Henry. He dropped it. He threw it behind him. They had Drake missed a couple other plays. He tried some deeper throws, and they got sacked. Ellis came right up the middle and sacked them. Then they had the three fumbles, 2 interceptions and the fumble, very close together, which put the game out of reach. So I think Coach McDaniels was just trying to be conservative and then take an occasional shot. But really, Seattle, if you watch the film, Seattle had these guys gloved. There was nowhere to go. And then Drake would have to pat his feet. And if he patted his feet for more than a second or two, he was sacked or he was running out of the pocket, scrambling for dear life. And there was really, I can't find a lot of guys open on tape except like 5 or 6 seconds after the play was over. Guys were starting to let people run free. But it was a great game plan by Seattle defense and not so much by New England.
So would you attribute the final result more to Seattle's defense just dominated, there was nothing that could be done about it, or New England's offense just didn't do enough and there are things that they could have done?
Yeah, a little bit of both, really. They did dominate. They took the outside lanes away, the corners, despite showing a lot of cover, too. They were latching onto the receivers. And so all the hook players were just kind of free, taking deep drops, and they had protection over the top. And nobody was getting free. Like I said, they didn't really attack the middle of the field like they needed to. And then offensive line couldn't hold up. If they did have some guys open deeper down the middle of the field, they couldn't get to them because the O-line couldn't hold up for, any time whatsoever. Will Campbell, like I said, was terrible. Left guard was terrible. Bradbury was terrible. So it's hard to call plays when you got to check second level of the defense, but you don't have time to get the receivers down to the second level. The receivers aren't fast enough to get down there. I was surprised Kyle Williams didn't play more. He supposedly ran like a 4.2 at the combine. I didn't see him out there early at all. Booty looked like he had extra size of shoulder pads on. He couldn't really run. Diggs was non-existent. And Hunter Henry, like I said, he had a couple catches late, but I don't know where he was. So very difficult to call plays. I've been in those situations with some injuries to keep people when you don't have the weapons outside and you don't have the internal people to get open and your running game's not working very well and your own line's not playing very well. It is a tough day, and it was a tough day for New England.
What about quick game? What about quick game from empty set where Drake May can see it a little bit more and you've got more receivers and the ball has to come out?
Tried a couple empties and they blitzed the hell out of him, and Drake had to throw it away a couple times. They tried to slant the Booty and he missed the throw and almost killed Booty on the slant to the hook player.
Right.
So they tried some quick game. The thing was, Seattle kind of knew they were clamping on the quick stuff. They were making them throw the ball deeper down to the second level, the daggers, the deep ends, the curls. They got to curl the Booty one time. They got the go route finally to Matt Collins for a touchdown late in the game. The game was out of hand. But, I mean, they did a great job of clamping down and really no separation whatsoever. But you're right, they could have tried something else. I think they were just afraid the left tackle couldn't hold up in protection when you empty everybody out. I mean, he's getting run by like a turnstile.
One of the things we've seen a lot of in the last few years, and I forget how much of this you went to when you were here, but we've seen a lot of 6 offensive linemen in football this year. And I thought I saw it on at least 1 or 2 plays. And I actually think one of the play action successful plays was with 6 offensive linemen in the game. Is that an answer to the issues they were having up front or not?
Yeah, that is a possibility. If the running game is a little bit better, then you can have some max play action 3-level type throws. Can you take some shots, let him set his feet, man, get away from the defensive line a little bit with some protection. I mean, that would have been nice for Drake. I think every time he went back to pass, he just felt pressure in his face or around his backside or whatever it was. So, yeah, sometimes you can alleviate that with an extra tight end in there, have a 6-7 man protection, good hard play action fake to hold the defensive lineman a little bit, then get out there and try to let some of those guys go free down the field. But they didn't really try anything like that.
After watching Seattle's defense last night, Jay, and against the 49ers, explain to me how Matt Stafford and the Rams offense in their final 2 games against Seattle, including in the NFC Championship game, how did Stafford throw for 831 yards, 6 touchdowns, and not get picked once and get sacked only once? How did that happen?
Yeah, I don't think the Rams offensive line is that overpowering either. You know, that's the beauty of it. I think Sean did a great job of designing some plays and getting Devontae free and Puka, obviously. I think those 2 receivers are much better than any receivers New England has. That's a big part of it. But they utilize the tight ends a little bit, and obviously the running backs out in the backfield and some passes as well. There were some areas to attack Seattle defense last night. They just didn't really try. You know, they didn't try to really get the backs out there in space against the linebacker. Hunter Henry out there on a safety or a linebacker. I was very surprised about that because, you know, the corners were pretty much latching on, playing man-to-man with safety help over the top. It's hard, you know. So there's some areas that work just New England couldn't figure it out.
Who's the most impressive player defensively for Seattle, or who was last night? I mean, there were a bunch of them, but did anybody stand out?
What I like about Seattle's defense is they do it with a lot of different people. I mean, there's 6-7 deep on the defensive line. They had guys rotating in, playing well. The linebacker, Ernest Jones, played extremely well.
Yeah.
The rookie safety is all over the place. The corners held up extremely well. I don't think you can really put your finger on one guy because they really play well as a team. They're well coached. They're in the right spot. They don't give up big plays. They hustle. They tackle well. They force turnovers. And that is a group effort. That's what you have to have as far as when you have a great defense, it's got to be 11 guys doing what they're supposed to do and playing extremely hard. And that's what Seattle does, play in and play out.
It seems awfully hard to do it because, you know, not everybody can have this kind of personnel. But when you're in one of those, you know, sub packages, you're nickel or even dime, and your 5 or 6 defensive backs run and hit and tackle that well, that is an unbelievable luxury, isn't it?
It is very similar. Texans were like that towards the end of the year.
Right.
With their sub packages, they could do the same thing, get after the quarterback and then they could hustle and hit. And that's a huge luxury to have as a play caller on defense. I mean, it's hard to throw the ball because you got pressure. Then it's hard to run the ball. They're hustling and pursuing with great angles. They can load up the box. They can play coverage. They can rush 4. They can rush 5. They can rush 6. I think Coach McDonald from Seattle, I think a lot of the narrative was he plays a lot of cover 2. He hasn't been pressuring a whole lot. We came after New England last night early and often. Really, I think really kind of put a little bit of fear into Josh McDaniels' eyes as far as calling plays later in the game.
So you've talked a little bit about Drake May, but obviously he's a big subject coming out of this game. So what did you see?
Yeah, he struggled. I mean, there's no question about it. This is a very good defense. He didn't have a lot of help. Obviously, the offensive line struggled. A lot of guys open from it. It wasn't like he was missing guys wide open now. There wasn't a lot of guys wide open that he was missing. But he did not play his best game. The ball security became an issue. He had a fumble and the interception where he got hit and the ball popped up. And then the other interception, he just threw a pop fly in the middle of the field into 5 defensive backs. So there was a lot of plays I'm sure he wished he could have back. But you got to give him a lot of credit for being there in the first place. But this was not Drake May's finest hour.
This is low-hanging fruit, I admit it up front. But knowing what you know, and you are a good talent evaluator, according to everybody who worked with you as a head coach, you were an excellent talent evaluator. We've got 2 years of information on Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May. You're on the clock back in 2024 with the number 1 overall pick. With the 2 years of data that we now have, who are you picking?
I'm still taking Jaden despite his injuries. I just think he can do everything athletically that both of them can do, except better. I think he's a better passer than both of them. I would go Jaden, then I would go Caleb, and then I would go Drake. And then maybe Bo ahead of Drake as well. So Bo has had a couple really good years too. He's a physical guy and can run. But I still like Jaden, the prospect of him coming out. As long as we can get him protected and he can stay on the field, I'd still go Jaden. And I'm not saying that because I'm being a homer. I'm just saying I like Jaden's talent.
What did you think of Sam Darnold last night?
He was good. He was efficient like he always is. He protected the ball. I think the narrative on him is he turns the ball over. He protected the ball, did good things, and handed the ball off to Kenneth Walker and had some good run designs and some poor run fits by New England, and Kenneth Walker took advantage of some of those with some big hits. But when you're playing a game like that and you're looking across the field and you feel like the other team can't move the ball, your job as a quarterback is to make sure you protect the football, and it's okay to punt and don't force the issue.
Right.
The plays will come down the stretch, and he did that. He did that all year long, and you got to give him a lot of credit. His career has been literally a roller coaster, and he's on top right now, and he deserves it.
One of your best lines multiple times this year is don't be afraid to punt. And we saw Super Bowl, especially in that first half, where nobody was afraid to punt. In fact, it looked like they were almost looking forward to punting and getting their defense back on the field. That draft, which was, Deron Payne for our team, you've already, talked about how they did the Alex Smith deal without your consultation, and you liked Alex Smith and you liked the way it worked out and you loved coaching him. But you've watched Sam Darnold from college until now. Take me through it in terms of how you viewed him all along the way.
Well, I think college, he's an interesting player. He's a top pick in the draft for a reason. He's a big kid who was very athletic, and he had a good arm. I mean, he was an impressive guy, and he went high for a reason. He just got caught in a couple of situations where it was hard to be successful. The team around him, the coaching staff, and then he lost a little bit of confidence and bounced around a couple times. And then Kevin O'Connell had a chance to work with him and liked what he saw. I mean, there's always that chance. When you get a chance to get a quarterback like Sam Darnold in your building with that talent, that size, athleticism, that arm strength, obviously he's a great kid. He's smart. You got to take a chance with him. See if you can work with him. See if you can get some confidence in him. Get some players around him. Kevin O'Connell had Justin Jefferson and Addison and Hockerson and a couple good backs, and really flourished Sam Darnold flourished under that system, which enabled him to get another job, and that's what happened. And who knows what happened with Kirk Cousins? If we don't give him a chance, he might still be a backup or a third string quarterback somewhere. He got a chance finally with us, flourished, got another opportunity, made a lot of money. Sometimes these quarterbacks just need extra opportunities to succeed with a new system, with a new staff, with new players around them, and a new vote of confidence.
Not knocking him at all, but there were a couple of throws because the rebound to his career, which kind of started, as a backup with Kyle, and then last year, as you mentioned, with Kevin O'Connell, and then a great year this year. But there were a couple of throws early in that game that were close to being early game changers that were right?
Yeah, the first stick route he threw was Marcus Jones almost picked it. That was a pick six.
I know.
I mean, it was like an inch away from being a pick six. That changes the whole course of the ball game right there. But yeah, you're right. And he has had tendencies to do that. Sometimes he feels like sometimes it looks like he's a slow thinker back there. It doesn't happen quick enough for him. He's a slow reactor at times. That's the only negative I think I can point out for Sam Darnold's career is that he stands back there and holds the ball too long, waiting for things to happen instead of anticipating things a little quicker. But overall, he's had a couple great years back to back.
All right, last one. You know our team very well. If you were still involved, it's kind of a copycat league. It's always been that way. And over the last 2 years, we've seen the reemergence of great defense lead teams to titles. Philly last year, Seattle this year, but really the best teams in the postseason this year were really good defensive first teams. So what would you be thinking if you were the GM, if you were Adam Peters or you were Dan Quinn? What would you be thinking after watching this postseason without your team in it about what you need to do?
We got to attack free agency. We can't rely on the draft. A lot of teams say, hey, well, wait till the draft. We don't know who's going to be out there in the draft now, who you're going to get, who's going to be available. You know who's going to be out there in free agency. You know you can target the positions of need you can attack in free agency. That way in the draft, you'll have a little bit more flexibility to take the better player as opposed to thinking about taking a player of need, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So I would be very, very aggressive in free agency. They have to be. There's no doubt about it, especially on defense. I mean, just look at what New England did. We talked about what they did on defense.
Right.
They added Spillane. They added Woods in the draft, Carlton Davis. They added Milton Williams. I mean, they added 6 or 7 starters on defense. I mean, that's huge. That's a huge hit for your football team if you can add 6 or 7 starters on defense. That's, I think, the approach I would take if I was there. I would be ultra aggressive, even if I have to overpay a couple people on defense. But I got to get that defense situated. So maybe I could take some superstar offensive player to help out Jaden. Maybe the running back from Notre Dame slips to you or somebody like that. So, yeah, that's what I would do.
Adam Peters is on the spot, no doubt, in this offseason.
Yeah, I think he is. I think he came out humming, man. They went to the NFC Championship game. Everybody was touting, and deservedly so. They did great things their first year. You lose your quarterback, your team gets a little bit older. Your warts start to show up a little bit more. Now you gotta fix them, and I think he has the ability to do that. And I think they'll have the cap to do it. I know they have an owner, which is very, very important now. The owner will be willing to spend money, so I think they'll have that in their hip pocket as well.
All right, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks, Kevin.
That was Jay Gruden from my podcast yesterday. All right, Will Dawkins, the general manager of the Wizards, will join me next. Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980 and the Team980.com. Last week for the Wizards, it was active. It included a big surprise, a trade for Anthony Davis that really surprised everybody. And now, all of a sudden, the team has added 2 All-Stars in Davis and Trae Young. And next year's outlook is different. Joining me right now is Wizards general manager Will Dawkins. Will, first of all, thanks for making time for me. Much appreciated. Sometimes big trades are in the works for a while, and sometimes they come out of nowhere. Describe the Anthony Davis trade.
Hey, good afternoon, Kev. Thank you for having me. Yeah, like you said, each trade deadline is different. This one, we got active early with the Trae Young trade and had to kind of reassess where we were at, look at our finances for the offseason and what we could do in the trade deadline. And we got together our strategy group and basically were like, these are the tools we want to use to improve the team. This is kind of the wish list, and we don't want to go above our price. Let's go around the league and just canvas the league and see what we can get. And towards that last week, it got a little bit more competitive, I guess, for prices and markets. And at the end of the day, it sped up pretty quickly towards the end, and we were very happy to go shopping and come away with a guy like Anthony Davis.
But did it speed up specifically with Anthony Davis? Was that an 11th hour kind of add to the strategy that you had decided on, or was that in the works for a week or two?
Yeah, I think it got more real within like a 48-hour type thing. It became more of a pie in the sky idea to actually having conversations with the team. But again, each thing goes quickly and differently, and this one kind of came together sooner than most.
When you made the move for Davis, I'm assuming, you made the case and you've got to pitch, Michael Winger, Ted. Can you describe just, in sort of highlight form, the pitch you made to make that trade?
Yeah. I think the best part I've learned about working here at Monumental is you have an opportunity to do your job. And Michael and I made this decision, just us, to improve the team. And it was based off our younger players and our belief in them as people, our belief in them as workers, and the step that they're going to take at the end of the season, into the summer, into next season. And we wanted to compete, or at least be in more competitive games. So for us, it was 2.5 years ago. Let's deconstruct this thing. I know it's difficult. It might be long. And we think we're through that deconstruction phase based on what we've been able to do right now. So it was a pretty easy sell that this is where we want to take the team and the direction of the team. And it was all basketball related.
What you just said is so interesting because I in talking about the trade last week, and I'll just tell you, I was very excited about it as a longtime Wizards fan. Obviously, I'm praying for health. I'm praying for the Anthony Davis that's healthy and plays like a top 5 to top 10 player and one of the best two-way players of his era. But one of the things I described, and I want you to get into it in more detail, is I said developing young players is hard when they're not playing meaningful games night in and night out. They're not playing games that matter in the standings. Maybe the opponent comes in and isn't as, intent on the game and is focused on the game. Is that what you were saying, that you're making the move so that these young players next year have a chance to develop in a completely different environment than the one they've been developing in?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head right there. I've been fortunate to be at other places, Michael Winger and Travis Schlenk as well, where we have been more competitive. And it's a different mindset when a team comes in to play you, when you're on national TV, when you're getting the opponent's best shot. And that's what we want. We think you grow most through the fire. And again, it's a testament to our scouting department to be able to draft and our coaches to be able to develop these players to that point where we feel like we want to throw them in there, be in more competitive games. And I think you'll see a growth that you normally can't see based on how we've been performing the last few years.
Yeah, that's so interesting to me. We're talking to Michael Winger. No, we're talking to Will Dawkins, the general manager. I think everybody wants to know, the Wizards fans want to know, first of all, because there is a real understanding of the draft protection ramifications of, winning too many games this year. I think you had mentioned to me the last time you were on that the 2026 draft was very interesting, I think is what you said. Will they play this year? Will Anthony Davis and Trae Young play in games this year? And if so, how many do you think?
That's the plan. We want to get them on the court and give them opportunities to play with their new teammates, make sure we can adjust and see what we have. We still kept a little flexibility going into the summer to add to the team. Obviously, we'll be able to add in free agency, and hopefully we'll be able to add through draft and have some luck on lottery night. But, yeah, the plan right now is to get both of them healthy. I think Trey's trending a little further ahead right now, where we'll be able to get an update through All-Star break. And then Anthony is still rehabbing. He has a doctor's visit All-Star weekend, and we'll get a better feel for his diagnosis and how far out he is. But our doctors, our medical team are high level. They're on it. And the goal is to get these guys on the court and speed up their RTP so that they can return and play with their teammates. But
Will, how do you
want to make sure they're
manage
100% healthy first.
Yeah. How do you manage this as a general manager? And let me mention for people that haven't paid attention to it, the Wizards have a draft pick that's protected top 8. It's a loaded 2026 draft. If they finish in the bottom 4, they're guaranteed to be in the top 8. If they finish outside the bottom 4, there is a risk that they could potentially lose this first round pick. How do you manage this as a general manager, as an organization?
Yeah, it's not at the forefront of our thinking. I think the forefront of what we're trying to do this year, and I spoke about it at the beginning of the year, is player development and full roster player development. We were loaded on the wings, and we just want to be able to see guys play, give them opportunities so that we can make decisions at the end of the year on where we need to go, who needs to stay, moves we need to make. So I think we've done a pretty good job of developing the entire roster. And even the last 4 games or the last 8 games, I think we've won 4 of them. We've been 500. So we're playing competitive basketball while we're giving players like Jameer Watkins, Will Riley, Sharif Cooper more opportunities. So for us, we got to make sure that we answer the questions we need to have on our young players, our young nucleus, find out who the guys we're going to move forward with. And that's probably the priority for the rest of the season. But we do know how deep the draft is, and we feel pretty confident we'll get a good player no matter where we're at.
Hopefully we get some draft lottery luck this year. I mean, we need it once and for all.
That
But
would
I
be
would
nice.
imagine, like last night, the Wizards didn't play. But you know this. It was a good night, wasn't it?
Good night when we don't play and everybody's healthy, for sure. We're getting back closer to health.
Yeah, Utah, the Nets, and New Orleans, all won games last night, which was all good for the Wizards. Tell me how you envision Trae Young and Anthony Davis playing together offensively.
Yeah, I think when we looked at our roster and kind of where we were at, we wanted to add some support at the point guard position and at the power forward position. And first, these guys are just going to come in as leaders of the team. We've always tried to surround our young players with veterans. I think year 1, it was Tyus at the point, Gallo at the 4. Year 2, we threw Valanciunas out there, Malcolm Brogdon out there, a little bit of Marcus Smart midway through the season. So we've always tried to have like anchors that have some ability to give them experience. And I think this time, adding Trae and adding Anthony Davis, we're amplifying the talent that's on the floor with them. So we're hopefully getting a little bit more out of everybody. And I think specifically to your question, how Anthony and Trae are going to play well, I don't think Trae's played with a player to the level of Anthony Davis while accomplishing the highest assist percentage. He just makes the game easier for a lot of people. So I think it's going to be great on that end. Anthony Davis probably hasn't played with a passing point guard this level. I don't know, maybe since Rondo would probably be the closest. But you can just see the lob opportunities, the 2-man game. But those guys are closers. They close games. Our young players are getting better closing games, getting better competing through without. And you can throw it down to Anthony Davis on the block, command the double team, swing the ball, and we have a lot of shooters ready to make plays. And that's how we want to play, with multiple guys making decisions and having size and length defensively behind Trae. And having Alex Sarr and Anthony Davis next to each other at the rim is pretty difficult, we hope, for other teams, as well as having Bilal and Keyshawn and our other defenders like Jameer on the wing pressing up into the ball. It allows Trae to get into the ball and force those guys to make tough decisions and finish over length, no matter who you're going after.
I'll tell you what, you just went through the whole description, and it really is so intriguing and exciting. And the thought of it and watching it, beginning next year in games in which the team's really trying to go out there and win 40, 45 games is exciting. Obviously, Anthony Davis's health is everything. You mentioned Rondo. The big difference, of course, is you could go underneath every single Rondo screen with Anthony Davis. You can't do that with Trae Young.
No, we're going to be able to spread the floor. Obviously, Trae will have the ball in his hands a good amount, but when you have other Trae Johnson, Bub Carrington, Keyshawn, all those guys can play on the ball and space the floor. it makes it hard for the defense. So again, we'll get each other together and get them in the room and try to figure out the best offense moving forward. But we want multiple decision makers. We want guys who can space the floor and make decisions and make it tough for the other team to know what we're trying to do. And I think we've added the right people to be able to do that. And hopefully we add another young talent in this year's draft to kind of push that core group of young players, that nucleus forward. Because like we said, we want sustained success, not a little quick bite in the apple. So we're trying to grow this thing right now and just take those next steps from deconstruction to competing a little bit more.
Do you see Sarr as a stretch four? Like, I'm looking at his 3-point percentage, shooting percentage right now. But when I watch him shoot, I see a good stroke that it wouldn't surprise me if that continues to become a higher percentage from behind the arc. Do you see it the same way?
Yeah. Alex is really, really talented. I think his playmaking is a little underrated just because he does so many other things at the rim on both ends at a high level. But his playmaking, his feel, his spacing, I think he finished the last 30, 35 games last year a little above 35%. He's hovered around that again from 3 this year. So the reps, the timing, having more spacing, better passing, better ball handlers around him, I think he's going to get more open shots. And he works. If you come in here and look at the stats of who's shooting the most, he's up there on the team. And he's going to have another big summer and take another jump. So I wouldn't say he's a stretch big. He's just a talented offensive player that can do a lot of things, with shooting being one of them.
We're talking to Will Dawkins, the Wizards GM. Tell me the difference between a 3-point shooter, but then a 3-point shooter who can really extend it to 30 feet plus, and how that impacts an offense and how defenses have to defend that.
Yeah, the gravity that Trey Johnson at a rookie has already gotten the reputation for, next to the gravity that obviously Trae Young shooting from the logo is nothing new to him as well. That just pulls the defense out. It gives our bigs a lot more spacing. It forces rotations 1, 2, 3, 4 feet further, which makes the closeout that much longer. And you're able to get our shooters in the corners easier shots, and they're less contested shots. So spacing the floor, shooting in this game, I know it's really changed over the last 10 years, but even more so the last 5 years. So having dynamic guys who can space the floor, and even at practice, we have a 4-point line that's about 4 or 5 feet beforehand, just so our guys are working on it. And it's just changed the way you're able to play on offense. But again, I think the most important thing outside of shooting is quick decisions. Everyone gets 24 seconds. Those that can process and make good reads and maximize those 24 seconds usually has the best offenses in the league.
Isn't that where Steph really changed the game, Will? Is it wasn't the 3-point shooting. It was the fact that it was from 28 feet and out that he was shooting those threes, and it changed the dimensions of the floor defensively.
Yeah, I think he's going to go down as someone that changed basketball, not just in the NBA. I think if you talk to Trae Young, he'll tell you he saw it and started doing it in high school and then changed the way they were playing in college. I was in Oklahoma working at the time and got to see him play a ton, and he was coming up pulling and doing the same things. And unfortunately, my son's 9 years old playing AAU now, and you see guys doing it already at that age. So the game has changed for sure.
Well, I've talked a lot about this over the years because, you go back 25 years and something, at the logo wasn't a jump shot. It was more of a heave, it was more of a chuck. And now everybody's shooting jump shots from half court. How did that change? They just started shooting them, wrists, legs, the whole thing just got stronger, right?
Yeah, I think it's also the repetitions. Those shots you weren't practicing, so you really couldn't extend your range. But if you watch some of our coaches work with the players, they try to keep it as natural as a shot as possible. And when you reach your peak, we kind of don't want you to go in further. So guys work in the weight room, they work in the medical performance space to build themselves up. And some guys can do it very easily where it's a natural shot. And if your motion is the same, we encourage you to shoot it, because most shooters are, no matter the distance, as long as they can see the rim and get their normal mechanics off, you feel confident about it. So if guys are going to guard you right at the 3-point line and you can space a little bit further, we encourage it. And I think Dwayne Wade and Miami Heat did a really good job of this with Mike Miller and Dwayne Wade when they won the finals, probably 2012-ish. And Dwayne Wade would run through the ball while he was spacing and really force the closeouts, while Mike Miller would space and hit those shots. So they kind of started it a little bit more. And then I think the Steph Currys of the world in Golden State, when they added Durant, really just took it to another level of floor spacing. And now people have caught on.
So where do you have to pick up Trey Johnson? And next year and the year beyond, where will the scouting reports say you've got to pick up Trey Johnson and not let him get his feet set? At what point?
I don't want to give other teams the answer.
Yeah.
But he's confident enough that if he can see the rim, he feels he can get it through the net.
How pleasant of a surprise, or maybe I should just ask you, are you surprised with Will Riley's play this early?
Not surprised. Definitely proud and excited of the way he's kind of climbed. He's someone that we thought would be able to do this at some point in the NBA. But kudos to Coach Keefe and Coach Topper with the Go-Go, just having synergy. And when he's playing with no G League team, he's working on the things, not just to go out there and score, but that are going to be productive once he comes back with the Wizards. And he had some really impressive moments there. Our scouts did a really good job at the amateur level. They've been watching him since 9th, 10th grade, and he always had the ball in his hands. He just continued to grow, continued to get better. And then once they split him in the 6-man role and really let him play at Illinois towards the end of the year, you saw that point guard, on ball type player come out, and he's got a lot of confidence. He is also one of the better workers on our team. So I think he's going to have a really big summer, kind of like Keyshawn, change his body and change his confidence and be able to come back and compete even more. But he's taking advantage of his opportunities, and we're really happy with where he's at.
I've paid a lot more attention here over the last, since football season ended. Tell me about Jameer Watkins. He gets after it on the defensive end.
Yeah. Again, another rookie who competes, gets after it. He has a physical profile because he's a little older than our normal rookies that can stand in there and compete. And I think he gives people on the ball a lot of problems because he physically can take the hits, but he has really good hands. His deflections are top
incredible
on the team and just his minutes played. So if you can even maximize that per 36, they're outstanding. But it's really a mindset for him. And he's getting better on the offensive end as well. I kind of joked with him at the end of last game. I said, you had no pick six today. The last few games, you've just stripped someone at the middle of center court, took it in for a dunk. I was like, no pick six today. We got to get back to that. But just knowing how difficult that is and his mindset. So hopefully we'll see him a little bit more the second half of the season so he can build up his confidence into the summer as well.
In saying it the way you said it, sometimes there are really good defenders and sometimes there are just guys who anticipate really well and they take a lot of risks and they end up with high steal numbers, but they aren't necessarily your best defender. Am I right about that, A, and B, which of the two is Jameer?
Yes, you are right about that. I think you always look at the top steals leaders at the end of the season and you're like, well, that's like a small point guard who gambles or takes risk, but gets up with a lot of balls. The thing that we try to chart is deflections and rebounds, stocks, blocks. Those things matter. But what we chart isn't always the result. We chart effective field goal percentage. So the guy you're guarding, are you forcing him to take a lower probability shot on you than he would against other people? And both Jameer and Bilal are doing a really good job of that this year. Last time I looked, Bilal was almost 4% lower expected when he's guarding you on the top wings in the league. So those are what we look for because at the end of the day, the ball's going to go in or out. But if you're forcing them to take more difficult shots than normal, we're going to take those odds most days.
Can the same be said to a certain degree about shot blockers? That sometimes you lead the league, but sometimes you're not the best rebounder behind it or not the best defender behind it.
Yeah, it's really hard to be Dwight Howard, where you can lead the league in shot blocks and rebound.
Right.
He was probably one of one elite Superman for a reason. But guys who influence the paint are more important than anything. And again, defense is a tandem string. So if you have shot blockers that you can force into and have more ball pressure, that's better than not. And then as a team, we have to rebound. And we're fortunate that we have some really good rebounding guards to help Alex out while he's going out there. And I think he's still top 3 in blocks, but has also improved his rebounding percentage. So physically, he's going to figure it out. He's going to realize which guy I need to go protect, which guy I can actually stay home on. And he's gotten better at that. But now having Anthony Davis and Alex, both who average over 2 blocks a game typically, that's going to be special for us defensively on that back line.
All right. Last one for Will Dawkins. Fingers crossed everybody's healthy next year. And you come out with Anthony Davis and Trae Young and Alex Sarr and Trey Johnson and Bilal Coulibaly and all of the players that we've talked about. I'm sure you have a number in mind. I won't ask you to give me the number, but do you think that if all breaks right health-wise, that next year the Wizards are not only a lot better, but they're a playoff team, and I'm talking about inside the top 6.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely be more competitive night in and night out, and we'll see where that leads us. We're going to go day by day, game by game, but I think the goal will be to be a team that everybody feels every time they play us, and a resilient group that fights back every time we have an opportunity, and we'll learn how to close games. So over the course of the year, I think we'll be better towards the end than the beginning, and I'm excited to see where that leads us.
I also think, for whatever it's worth, there will be more juice, going into 2026, 2027 for a Wizards team since John and Bradley were playing together. Having an Anthony Davis, Trae Young combo, healthy, all right, again, fingers crossed, with all of the young stars, that would be, people will be paying attention for the first time in a while. That's got to be exciting too, right?
Definitely exciting, but I do want to give our fans some credit. They've had some really good moments this year supporting the group that we have, and their confidence and their belief in the young guys, I think, is why they're so excited to add 2 Hall of Famer or 2 all-star level players, because they know we have a good thing going on with our young guys, that it's going to take some time to put it all together. But they've been great. It's a basketball city, as you know. Like, they're clamoring to support, but I feel like they've been doing a really good job getting behind our guys, and they want to support the young guys just like the guys we've added. And hopefully we'll add 1 or 2 more to the team and continue with the phase we're in.
All right, let's get a big night from Jalen Brunson tonight in the Knicks. I know you know what I'm talking about. Thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it. Really exciting last week, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much. Always fun to connect. Have a good day.
Yep. Will Dawkins, everybody. The Knicks play the Pacers tonight. I said Jalen Brunson. I had it wrong. I mean, we are, excuse me, a Siakam fan tonight. We are Pacers fans tonight. We need Jalen Brunson to go 4 for 19 from the floor and maybe roll an ankle in the first half. Because the Pacers are one of those teams, and that's a big deal, man. That is going to be a big deal over the next couple of months. The Wizards have to ensure that they're in that bottom 4, and you can add a Darren Peterson or an AJ DeBonsa or a Cameron Boozer, and that you've got that starting lineup with Davis and with Trae Young, and all of a sudden it's like, here comes Darren Peterson, and as a rookie, the number 1 pick, and you get to watch that develop on a team that's playing meaningful basketball games. But right now, the Wizards do have the 3rd worst record in the league, but they're only a game back from the 5th worst record in the league. Keep an eye on that. Thank you to Will Dawkins for coming on. Joe Gibbs will join us next. Joe Gibbs coming up in just a minute. Redfin's been giving away, and still is, $1 million home in an epic, never-been-done-before scavenger hunt on the Redfin app. It's called Redfin's Great American Home Search, presented by Rocket, and it kicked off today. The house is hidden in Redfin and Rocket's big game commercial, so watch it closely. Download or update the Redfin app to play. Solve the clues first to win. You've got until tonight, February 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern, to find your new home. No purchase necessary. 50 U.S., D.C., must be age of majority. Visit thegreatamericanhomesearch.com for official rules. Waiting for Joe Gibbs to call in. Reached out on Friday after Sonny had passed away, and I knew that Joe would have thoughts on him. And then the tragic news on Friday afternoon, Saturday morning, that a player who played for Joe Gibbs, Barry Wilburn, passed away tragically in a house fire. It was a sad week for Redskin fans, Washington football fans. Barry Wilburn in 1987 was a first-team AP All-Pro corner, led the league in interceptions with 9, had 3 additional picks in the playoffs, including 2 in the Super Bowl in the 42-10 win over Denver. He also had a very important interception that basically, in many ways, won the game for them against Chicago in the divisional round at Soldier Field. That was the game that Darrell Green had the punt return for the touchdown, but Barry Wilburn picked off a pass in the end zone when the Bears were threatening in the fourth quarter. All right. Do we have Joe? All right. Awesome. Joe Gibbs is joining me right now. Simply put, the greatest coach in the history of this city and one of the all-time winners in sports, period. I appreciate you doing this because I know how busy this week is with Daytona coming up on Sunday. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Kevin. Yeah, we got a lot going on this week. I was laughing because in football, you had 6 months really to kind of get ready for the next season. You are busy and everything, but it's quite a break. Here, we got 2.5 months and we're back at it. And so we're going to go 38 weekends here, and we start Sunday with our Super Bowl. So the racing world is kind of crazy and wild, but just appreciate any time I get a chance to speak to you guys and our fan base there, because everybody's always treated me so great. I love DC, our fans there. It's the greatest fan base in the world.
It's not difficult, Joe, to treat you well because of the years and the joy you gave all of us. By the way, just give me a quick peek into what this week is like. What are you doing in preparation for Sunday's race?
Yeah, well, the key for us is it actually starts tomorrow night with qualifying. And so we have practice in the morning tomorrow, then we go Wednesday night, then we have the duels, which is 125 races, 2 of them on Thursday, and so it's all week. And then on Saturday we have our second down cars, our cars that race on Saturdays. They will go on Saturday, and then we have the big Cup race on Sunday. So this is a whole week of racing. And it's a big deal for everybody. We put a lot into this, and it is a super hard race to win. Denny Hamlin, our driver that's been here with us, has a gift. He's won 3 of them, but they're really, really hard to win, and it is a tough. And there can be upsets because it is pack racing, and a lot can happen when your cars are running together like that, 30 and 40 cars.
You know, you were born to compete, and the competition bug for you never left because you went right into racing, and you've been involved in this a lot longer than you were involved in football. When you think about football versus, this, which gave you or gives you the bigger rush, competitive rush?
I think that's a great question. So let's think about it for a minute. So I started out in football. I worked my way, and I had a dream of being a head coach. Never thought I would get to do something like coach the Redskins. And so that part of my life and the competitive part was, I was the technical guy.
Right.
I grew up in football, design plays, call plays on the sideline. So there's a thrill with that of making it go, and you think you could make stuff happen. Okay, I step over to racing, didn't grow up in it. I'm not the technical person, can't set up a car. And so I said to myself, okay, I'm over here as an owner. I said, what do I need to do to be a part of this team? And it was try and get the sponsors, try and pay for things, and supply the technical people that are now doing what I kind of did in football. Over here, they're called crew chiefs. Get them the resources it takes, help pick the drivers, and the drivers are just like quarterbacks. You're not going anywhere if you don't have a great driver. So many parts of this, I laugh, Kevin, and tell people it's just like football. The difference is we have a car. And it's pro sports. The difference is we have 4 teams, and it's a challenge, and I love it, trying to get 4 teams to work together. So there's differences, but a lot of it goes back to working with people, and if you get the right people together, okay, you're going to be successful. That's what happened in Washington. We had great players, great front office, great fan base, and to put all that together, it's people. And so that's kind of been my 2 worlds. But one of them was technical, and the other one that I really appreciate is family. JD and Coy worked with me in racing before they went to be with the Lord, and I now have 4 of the grandkids with me. So this is family too. I love that part of it. But I tell everybody over here, the greatest thrill I have is the first of every month trying to pay the bills.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a rush too. That's a different kind of rush. You know, you've always talked about something, and people have always given you credit for this, that you have been phenomenal at identifying the characteristics in the person that will help you win. And you just, compare Denny Hamlin and your drivers to quarterbacks. What do you look for? Is it the identical sort of character makeup? Because obviously the skill set is different, but what do you look for? What's the first thing you look for in your quarterback on the field, or your driver, that's going to man one of your teams?
Well, I think that is a key to building teams, is selecting the people you want to be on your team. And you got to remember, we're dealing with human nature. And so each one of us is very complicated. And so I feel like being involved in the draft in the NFL was really, really important, because there you are picking the young guys that are going to start out on your football team. It always starts with character. What kind of a person are they? And so that starts first. And then obviously I think the second thing is, are they good football players? Then there's the athletic ability that comes in there. And then, of course, there's mental and physical toughness. So all those things kind of add up, but it's complicated. You're trying to pick a person.
Yeah.
And we are complicated. What's going to happen when a young guy comes out of college? You draft him and you give him money.
Yeah.
And all the things, he winds up in a city like that. What's going to happen? And we see it play out. Sometimes it can be super successful, and then sometimes we see it's not successful. It's hard to pick people, but it's something that's really complicated. I'm not sure there's a right answer for it, but certainly it takes hard work, and you got to be smart about what you're doing.
Well, there's obviously a feel and an emotional sort of IQ part of this that you've figured out over the years and identifying them. But you're right, we're complicated people, and not all of them end up being what you thought. I reached out to you on Friday and Chris on Friday because Sonny Jurgensen passed away, and you were one of the people I thought of. Not that you coached Sonny, but you certainly were around Sonny. Sonny was always close to the organization, and called the glory years games with Frank Herzog and with Sam Huff. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on Sonny's passing and his incredible life.
Well, a great player for sure. You're talking a Hall of Fame quarterback, made all the great plays. The fan base there absolutely loved him because he was a great player and won a bunch of games. So that was one part of his life. But the other one you mentioned, after football, it was Sonny, Sam, and Frank. It was Glenn Brenner. It was George Michael.
Yep.
That crew, awesome. Great guys. And that carried over to our fan base there. And Sonny was a key part of all that. And so I think there was really like 2 professional lives for him. And both of them fit in Washington. And the fan base there absolutely loved him. And so we all miss him. And he was just a key player to everything that took place in Washington football.
You know, you mentioned the media back then, and it wasn't just the glory days of our football team, the Redskins, with you coaching, you know, into 4 Super Bowls, winning 3 of them, but it was really the heyday of local sports media on TV. I mean, Glenn Brenner was a giant, God rest his soul. George Michael, the same thing, God rest his soul too. And you got along with every one of them. And it's different now. Like, you didn't have to coach in the era of social media. You dealt with George, Glenn. Of course, there was that interaction with Steve Buckhantz when he brought out the Playboy magazine that picked you to win the Super Bowl. You do remember that, right?
I can't believe that you remember that. I do. I said Buckhantz. I can still see him there. It was in the locker room.
Yeah.
And I remember when he brought that up, and I freaked out.
You completely
Every
freaked
time
out.
I see him, I remember that.
It was before, by the way,
great.
the 91 season, and Playboy had picked the Skins to win the Super Bowl. Buck told you that, and you went nuts. And you said, what does Playboy know about professional football? Well, guess what, Joe? They had it right about the 91 team.
They did, thank goodness. Yeah. You know, really, we went 0-4 in preseason. I think I remember that.
Yeah.
And it was everybody was after us at that point. But you know, it's somebody. You know, I think it's 91. Somebody just told me this week that they did a survey again of the top 100 teams that played in the NFL or whatever, and that team keeps showing up, the 91 team, as being the best. So it was interesting. I think you can check it, but I think it's the first team ever that was first on special teams, first on offense, first on defense. And so we had some great players, and it was a great year.
Yeah, there's an advanced kind of statistical metric. It's called DVOA that goes back and measures all of these Super Bowl winners. And the 91 Skins have consistently been considered the greatest team, regular season and postseason combined in NFL history. You know, as you said that, I sort of am reminded that I've asked you before which of your teams was the best, and you hesitate to pick one, but I think the 91 team was your best team. You would agree with that, right?
Yeah, I agree with your first statement. I didn't pick one.
All right, so pick one today.
Because
you brought it up.
If you think about this. That first Super Bowl that we won, we started out 0-5 and somehow survived that first year.
Yeah.
And then that second year, what an experience that was to have a chance to win a Super Bowl, beat the Dolphins, and everything that took place there. So that was huge. We turn around and go back to next year. Of course, we got beat by the Raiders, but that team actually set a record for being smart. Our giveaway takeaway ratio will never be, I think, beat. It was plus 43, which is crazy.
It'll never be topped.
I don't think it will be. And so we lost the game, so you can't count that. But then you go to 87. What a unbelievable year that was. The Doug Williams story in the middle of it, the second quarter, everything that took place there. Then you go to 91, and if it wasn't for a Hail Mary by the Cowboys, you know, we might have gone undefeated. So it really is hard to pick. I know this: we had great players, great fan base. Our fan base there, if you remember that stadium, RFK, I got to tell you, it was the perfect setup for us. You know, the field, the stands, I could still see them going up and down. You were right on top of us, the players and coaches. There was so much to that
it was the best.
I feel like it was one of the greatest experiences. It was just the best. I agree with you.
I won't make you say the 91 team, even though you brought it up and said only team to be number one offense, defense, special teams. There a couple of others real quickly, and it's another sad tragedy, but he played for you. Barry Wilburn passed away the other day, and he had one of the all-time great seasons for a corner in Skins history. 87, he led the league in interceptions and had 3 more in the postseason.
Yeah, I heard that, and that was so sad.
Yeah.
So many great players for us, but Barry certainly was one of those. And, over that period of time, so many players that I leaned on, and Barry played such a key role for us, and he did have a couple of great years there. So I just hate that we wind up losing somebody like that. And it's just a tragedy, really.
What did you make of Bill Belichick not getting into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot?
Yeah, I really didn't understand that. I don't know how that took place, and that's the best way for me to say it. I don't really understand that, how that could happen. So,
Yeah. I mean, you obviously coached against him when he was the defensive coordinator for Parcells in those, great Skins Giants games of the 80s into the early 90s. What have you thought? I don't know that I've ever heard your take on Belichick, the head coach, over all these years.
Well, Parcells, I have nightmares at night. I still wake up. It's Bill Parcells.
Well, he's the one coach, he's the only coach, Joe, that you did not have a winning record against in the NFC East.
Let me say this. I thought he was a great coach. And, of course, when they were together, those two, it was really, really tough for us. I always felt like we had some of our best game plans, the best preparation, everything against the Giants. And somehow we wind up, being in a tough spot at the end of the game and lose the game. I really feel like, Parcells was just terrific. And then Belichick during that time was obviously a key assistant for him and the defense and the scheme they had. And so when you see somebody like that and then the career he had, it doesn't add up for me. So the best statement I make is I don't understand it. I don't understand how that could happen.
Both of those guys coached a player by the name of Lawrence Taylor. Is he the best player you ever coached against?
The other thing I can't say, there's so many great players that we coached against. But what I will say, Lawrence Taylor did, when I got to the Redskins, I was convinced we had a 2-back system like everybody else had.
Right.
And the very first time we played them, Taylor, I think, sacked us like 3 or 4 times, and he caused us to adjust our offense. You could not block him by just turning the tackle out. Certainly, you couldn't put a back on him. You couldn't pull the guard. So what we did, we actually took the fullback out, put another tight end in. The only way you could slow down, you're still not going to stop him, but to put a tight end on Lawrence Taylor. And so that's a different way for us to get to a 1-back. But he was the reason that we actually changed our offense there and went back to a 1-back set. In San Diego, when I was there, we did it because of Kellen Winslow as a pass receiver. But here, it was Lawrence Taylor.
All right. I know you got to run, and I appreciate the time. Just give me your thoughts. It was a tough season here in 2025, a lot of injuries, but I'm sure you followed it. What did you make of Washington's 2025 season off of the great season that they had in 2024?
Well, we know what the new organization, when they came in with Josh and everything, They just made great decisions. I think we got ourselves back last year to go all the way to the championship game. I mean, what a definite turnaround and what a fantastic year they had. So we know so many good decisions there. We know we got everything in place. And I think what this year pointed out is how hard it is in the NFL to stay at the top, because injuries, okay, everything that can happen to you, okay, and the different challenges. That's why we always love the NFL and how hard it is, because we know it's hard. As fans, when we watch, it's hard to put all that together, go through a year and have real success. That's the reason why we admire it so much as a sport and a game. And so I think a lot of those things happened to us this year. I think we got a great group of people running the organization, Josh heading it up. And I think we've got the right coaching staff. I think we just have to go to work in the off season, get healed up. And we know what we can do, because the year before was a fantastic year, and that's hard to do. And so I think we got to have a great future.
You know, I really believe this is true. But of course, my exposure was primarily to you as a fan. But you were one of the first coaches that would say, after a season was over and looking ahead to next year, last year doesn't have anything to do with this year. Every year's a new year. Every year, every team is different. And you were right. You were so right and ahead of your time. And that was before free agency and all of the roster turnover. But you knew something back then that I don't think a lot of people knew, which is the NFL really does change so much year to year.
I think the hardest thing in the NFL is to stay up there, okay, year in and year out, because even you go to a Super Bowl, you have a shorter season. You have so many things that take place after a Super Bowl. Okay, hard to keep things in place. The way that other teams look at you once you win a Super Bowl, that has a lot to do with the whole next year. And I think for us, I think we had our worst year was after a Super Bowl year. That was at, when 88. And that's a perfect example. You can have pretty much the same players and the same setup, but it's hard to repeat a great year like that. So many things go against you.
Joe Gibbs, everybody. Thank you so much for doing this. All well? You're doing well?
Doing great, Kevin. Yeah, appreciate it. Just, hey, God's blessed us, and we're rocking and rolling. We got a lot going on in life. I'll be back in Washington on Friday evening. I'm doing a Bible, the Museum of the Bible. I'm going to be there doing some stuff with that. I'm back and forth all the time. The youth home there. I love everything about our youth home. We've got 130 kids on campus. We got counseling centers. We got a whole complex. It's a real, only Washington could do something like that. And I just appreciate the youth home so much. So we're back and forth all the time.
All right. Well, this town loves you, as you know, and it's always great to hear your voice. Thank you so much, and good luck this weekend on Sunday.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Joe Gibbs, everybody. Always good to get his perspective on everything. And again, reached out to him just to get his thoughts on Sonny. But I love the fact that he brought up the DVOA numbers, that consistently ranks the 91 team as the greatest team in the history of the NFL. And yet he won't still admit that it was his best team, which, by the way, it absolutely was his best team. Redfin's giving away $1 million home in an epic, never-been-done-before scavenger hunt on the Redfin app. It's called Redfin's Great American Home Search, presented by Rocket, and it kicked off today. The house is hidden in Redfin and Rocket's big game commercials, so watch it closely. Download or update the Redfin app to play. Solve the clues first to win. You've got until tonight, February 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern, to find your new home. No purchase necessary. 50 USDC must be age of majority. Visit thegreatamericanhomesearch.com for official. Thanks to Joe. Thanks to Michael Winger. Thanks to Will Dawkins, who joined us on the show, and Jay Gruden as well. Back tomorrow. Chris is next.